Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon King, and I thank you for tuning on in today on what is the Seahawks Weekly Roundup, a chance for us to take a little bit look back on the prior week, what happened, what went down, any stories that might have slipped between the cracks or anything going on off the field. Though right now, steady as she goes, quiet as she is, Captain, as everything seems to be rolling along pretty rightly with your Seattle Seahawks here in first place. But got a great show here for you today. A look at a couple of plays in this past week, a look at this gap scheme and what it's doing. I've got a, I think, nice little underrated hero of this game picked out that I think you guys are going to like as well. But let's start this off the top with the run of defensive dominance that your Seahawks have been going through lately. It is one where Seattle has locked this defense in with McDonald in a way that I don't think that we really foresaw him being able to fully pull off, getting in even to the depths of this season. Yeah, we hoped you'd see the signs of it, but to have it rolling along so well, what has been past the 4 or 5 week strain here, that's more than just a sample size and continues forward. There's going to be some big tests coming down the line here, and maybe none as big as this week with the Packers coming to town with their offense and the many weapons that they have that they can attack you with. But you all saw, I'm sure, this stat that was presented out there online a little bit, and what they've done the last 3 games being your Seattle Seahawks. Points per game, 14.7. That would be second over that span. 25-plus yard allowed plays. They've only allowed 1 over the last 3 games. That's it, of course, first. Yards per play, 4.8, which is fourth. But this stat got me thinking a little bit into a bigger mindset of on the grander scale of things, where Seattle's sort of sitting and where they've been sitting at, and not just the last 3 games, but let's take it the last 5 games, because I think then you're starting to get outside of that sample size area of things and get a real good idea of where they're at performative wise, and if this continues, what you might be able to hope for from this defense as we go into the future. And it has been a really, really good run as far as the last 5 games go. I put this data together, and just off the last 5 games, I did remove the kick return touchdown and the anything that was not the defense actually giving up points here, so we get an accurate portrayal of where the defense has been. And when you look at them over the last 5 games, and I measured this up against where other teams are at statistically, just for the totality of the season, if they had kept this kind of performance up through the whole season on these last 5 games and what they've done. So they've averaged 14.8 points per game last 5 games. That would be first in the NFL if you kept that up over a season. Yards per game, 311. That'd be 11th in the NFL. And then rush yards per game, which was one I really want to take a look at, because that's one that's felt like that thing has flipped right on over, right? As bad as it was in the last couple of years to how good it's turned over into this week, into this year, 91.5. That would be 5th in the NFL. So he's taken this league worst run stuffing crew over the last couple of years, not a 1-year problem, a couple of year problem. And you've not only taken it to that middle of the road place, but taken it here as you continue to go through the year here into a place of close to being elite. I think as you can kind of get. We'll see if this team can keep it up on the defensive front, but it has not just been simply them just having a good little bit of a defensive showing. It's them being very close to dominant. And this is something where we go into the future as McDonald only is going to get more of a system in place and more of the players in-house that are further going to fit to his scheme. You do start to dream and wonder about, hey, is this thing get even better? Does this even grow larger? Can he get even more dominant? And I think that there's a lot of reason to believe so. But a hell of a defensive performance from McDonald and what he's brought to the table this year. This is no small turnaround. This is not him making things marginally better. This is a eye-opening, jaw-dropping kind of improvement from a defense. And we knew the talent was there. We suspected maybe having a guy that could bring a scheme on that was smartly applied could really take the unit fully forward. But I don't even think any of us that were the most optimistic could have dreamed to it being this way at this point in the season where they're standing. And it's lovely to see. Hopefully they can finish this off now through the rest of the year. We've got our Seahawks looking at right now playoff situations, playoff scenarios. How is this going to kind of work out? I know many of you are maybe starting to take a look at this, so I always want to kind of keep a track on this a little bit week by week so that we might be able to get an idea of what needs to be done, where we're standing, just where's the lay of the land at. And I actually think that it's pretty simple here for the most part when you break down what where we got to go at on this. There is now, of course, a crack of daylight that's opened up. The roads widened with the Green Bay Packers having lost 9-4. We beat them this week. They go to 9-5. We've got the same record as them. That sets up for the Seahawks to really have a good potentiality of getting into the playoffs then through the wild card, or much better than it was before, but even up to a couple of weeks ago where it looked pretty bleak, where it looked like the only inroads would be through the division. So by winning this week, not only do you help and further your chances forward in the division, but you also firmly more root with a tiebreaker there with the Green Bay Packers. And you can, I don't think you're going to be running into the same issue of the Vikings the week after that with them at 11-2 and just not in the same record place. But all that being said, this helps you on a couple of multiple levels then at that point by putting you in that position there against the Packer team, as it could come down to you down at the end of the line, as the Vikings seem kind of a shoe-in there to be getting that number 2 seed. We'll see what goes on there, or that number 1 wild card seed, I should say. And then we'll see what goes on there with the Commanders. But it does look like you'd have to kind of go through that Packer point to get in by the wild card way. But I know many of you don't want the wild card way. You're not happy enough with the wild card way. You want that division title. You want to be able to crow to the rest of these guys in this division, just like I get to every week here so far in the NFC West roundtable. And so let's go through some of these scenarios, which actually gets pretty simple for as complex as it might look on the surface of this. The Seattle Seahawks, of course, you guys know our record right now is it's going to stand going through the rest of this year, so I won't belabor this too much. You got the Packers, Vikings, Bears, Rams. Last 4 games. You are 1 game up on the Rams, but the Rams have won a game against you so far. So if it came down to, at the moment, if we had tie record, they'd have us beat on it, and we've got that final game of the season, which when I run through these various scenarios, I just keep coming back to you kind of can't get around it, where that final game of the season ends up probably being the one that weighs in so much, unless the Seahawks can just take care of business and almost practically win out. Maybe have 1 loss on their way out of this, as I'm sure the Rams will probably run into 1 loss before they meet us. But by the looks of this, it would look like you're going to get to that scenario where it may come down to that game between you and them at the end, and it's really hard to not see how it kind of goes into that direction of things. With the Rams, they had the real tough game this past week that they needed to lose, being this Bills game. Now, on the road against the Niners, a Niner team that's still alive, who will still be fighting. Maybe they can find a way in that game, can the Niners, to come out the other end of that one with a win. But then you have the Jets, and we'll see where the Cardinals are playing at that point. But it's a much easier schedule than what the Seattle Seahawks have to deal with, of course. And then even the Cardinals, who I know we just beat, comes into play a little bit on this, because they've got the Panthers and the Patriots set up, which could look like 2 easy wins for them. If they take the Niners, that's 3 wins for them, taking them to 9. And then if they were to beat the Rams, they could go to 10 wins. The Rams could still beat us in the final game of the season to get themselves to 10 wins. And then we have the weird scenario, and this would be the wild, woolly scenario of all 3 teams in the NFC West at the end of the year, Seahawks, Rams, Cardinals, have 10 wins and 7 losses. The Cardinals will have beaten the Rams twice. The Rams will have beaten the Seahawks twice. The Seahawks will have beaten the Cardinals twice. This is your nuclear, as Bush was saying, nuclear situation. So how does it play at that point? Well, your tiebreakers don't really apply at that point between the 3 teams. It then becomes division record. And when you go to the division record by how this would play out for this to get to the 10-7 point, because, for instance, the Rams have 3 more divisional games left, and they already have here 2 wins in this division, they're most likely going to be about 4 wins. The Cardinals are going to be at probably 4 wins within the division too if they win on this run. And then the Seahawks would unfortunately be at 3 wins within the division. Because you go from the tiebreaker between common denominator, but if you can't solve it by that, then it goes to division. Then at the division record, now you're a little bit stuck because you have 1 less win within the division than the other 2, and it becomes a 2-horse race between those guys and how that tiebreaker breaks out. So it really goes down to the bottom line of, if you want this division, you're probably going to have to get that Rams game. The only thing that could prevent that is if you go, in my opinion, 3-0 here over these next 3 games to set the stage to where you maybe have a 2-game lead going in there, where essentially you lose a game, they have the tiebreaker, but it's not a tied score, so not a tied record, so it doesn't really matter at that point. But that's pretty much your playoff scenarios here. You do beat the Packers. They have the Saints, the Vikings, and the Bears. We'll see where the Vikings will be at in that scenario with 2 losses. They could be very comfortably almost into the playoffs at that point, depending on where we stand here in the next 2 weeks. And that Bears and Saints game certainly looks winnable for them. So you would, if you do want to get into that wild card deal as well, it may be hard not to pull that one in there unless you're going to have them lose a couple of games against some opponents that you might think that they should win. And then with the Commanders, you have them going up against the Falcons and the Cowboys and the Saints. 3 winnable games there, though, yeah, you've also got the Eagles on there, which is going to be a tough one for them. So we've got kind of a tough schedule through here. Got to handle business. Probably got to win the division when it's all said and done. Yeah, the road widens a little bit more for the wild card, but you got to handle business down the stretch here, and you're probably going to have to beat the Rams when it's all said and done. With these scenarios kind of all played out and how they're going right now, kind of interesting. All right, let's keep it on moving here as we do here on the show. And let's go into a couple of our segments here. Let's kick it off here with the PFF grades of the week. Another interesting week for grades here for your Seattle Seahawks. Let's start out with the offense here. And offensively speaking, Jackson Smith and Jigba leading the way for you here. Not hard to see why on that side of it. Is he had an 84.1 grade. Kind of interesting here is that he's got actually 11 more snaps in this game than DK. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit with DK Metcalf with his 50 snaps and just kind of just a sense I get on this is he's probably dealing with a little bit of still an injury issue, if not just maybe a little bit of that knee that they're trying to protect a little bit and be aware of. Zach Charbonnet, another one like Jackson Smith. Easy to understand why these two guys come out of the grade that way as they did. Gino Smith much of the same way as he played a very sterling game, very clean, crispy game. Great to see Laken Tomlinson at 74.6. He's had a year where there's been some down scores in there. He's had a year also where there's been some decent scores from him on the side of it. McIntosh did what he could on his limited 15 snaps. DK, Charles Cross, pretty good as well. For the second straight week, PFF did not like Abraham Lucas's Sa'atoa or Olawatimi's game. I'm not exactly quite sure. There's some whiffs in there on tape. There is. The whiffs are easy grade L's, easy grade minuses. There seems to be something at times a little bit off with some of these lineman scores from PFF, though, as it just doesn't match up to the bottom line. You have a quarterback that, 24-30, doesn't get sacked. You have a running back, both your running backs that seem to have pretty good holes open up for them and have big days, but you have three of your bottom four are your lowest rated are your offensive linemen. So this is one that I find a little bit squirrely on some of the grades with this one. Don't quite get it, but they got them where they got them, I guess, on this one. Lockett, Bobo, both had a little bit of troubles this year in being very well rated. Make of that what you will with them, but the PFF grading system hasn't liked those guys particularly well either. But good to see Jackson Smith, Charbonnet, some of the young kids up there at the top, and Kenny McIntosh getting maybe his first not full run, but as close to his media run as he's had, doing the most with it, getting you duly excited here for what he might be able to bring here going forward. Defensively, we don't talk enough about Jaron Reed's season and what he's done this year. It's not splashy like you get with Leonard Williams, but when you look at him at the end of the year, he's going to probably be like a top 22 rated defensive tackle in this sport. And that for a guy that you have on a pretty low-end contract who can play both positions in the nose tackle and the 3-tech, who can be good in the run game, who can be good as a pass rusher. You saw that in even this game where he was well-rated all the way around on this one. Jaron's had one of his more stronger, finer seasons here for your Seattle Seahawks. He really has. Sometimes does dirty work, sometimes gets a little bit of a chance to do the flash, but he's good all the way around in whatever you ask him to do. Rayshawn Jenkins may feel a little bit better coming off that injury. Well grade on his part. Kobe Bryant right there is the 3-safety look. It seems like it's going to be alive and well here for the foreseeable future. Tariq Woolen had a good game. And hey, how about Tariq Woolen coming in with a 67.8 tackling grade? Yeah, you might go, well, that's all right. No, that's for Tariq Woolen. That's an amazing tackling grade. This is a guy that will post 30 tackling scores in a given grade. So that is awesome. Leonard Williams, another finely graded game. Wasn't able, I think, to make as much happen from a pass rush standpoint, but absolutely got the job done as a run defender in this game. I think got another tip ball, too, if I'm not mistaken. Devin Witherspoon, always coming in hot, solid. Byron Murphy as well, same thing. Byron and Devin, both kind of similar stuff they do, where it's some dirty work points of the defense, but they're making it work. They're making it happen. Bottom of the line, Draymond Jones. Maybe not going to do as much here. You do wonder, and you look at a little score like this, and you see a Uchenna Nwosu have a pretty solid 65 grade for his first action on a limited 21 snaps. And you go, okay, is Uchenna going to start to maybe take away some of those early down edge snaps from Draymond Jones? You thought Draymond would be the better edge defending run guy out there, but look at his run defense scores. You gave him 27 pass rush snaps, so you gave him a good amount of that, and it was only 14 snaps as a run defender. But I would wonder if that starts to maybe go up just a little bit for him on that. For Uchenna, I mean. And out of favor would be Draymond on this just a little bit, maybe. Ernest Jones. PFF doesn't like Ernest very much for whatever reason on that. I think he played a bad game. Got you an interception. Thought he was pretty solid. Again, maybe he's had a couple better games for the Hawks, but wasn't, I don't think, a liability as the score might indicate. Roy Robertson, Harris Hankins on 17 snaps. Didn't get graded well. Derek Hall was very, I thought, active in this game. He didn't necessarily get a lot from a pressure standpoint, sack standpoint, but he was working off the edge, and my man was being held like almost all game, it seemed like, by Paris Johnson. Paris just had a nice meaty hold there of his jersey. Michael Dixon, pretty crazy, 84 grade for him on the punt game. Shows what they thought of his day. Loved him on that side of it. Oftentimes, I don't get too much out of these PFF grades. I mean, for instance, Myers, they always have down at a 60 level. It's like, yeah, hits all his kicks all the time. They give him 65 grade, but they've got their own kind of weird formula for this. Barner, Tariq Young, Mike Morris, Jake Bobo, getting the job done out there on the coverage units, blocking and all that. What's your PFF scores? Let's keep it moving now to one of our lighthearted segments here, and this is one that entails, of course, me ripping off a little bit of the old ESPN Come On Man segment. And we've had some brutal ones this year on the Come On Man segment. This one's a little bit more easier and along the lines of the lighthearted segment that you would typically look at on this. And the one we're going to look at today, if I can bring it up here, if I can find it, it's going to be a pun here by my man Michael Dixon. And Jarek Reed, bless him, has been a pretty good special teams unit player for the Hawks. He's just coming back now. From the torn ACL. And he gets his butt down here, works hard, gets out in front, shows off that 4.3 speed that he was tested as having, and then proceeds to watch the punt returner run right past him. So sprints all the way down, gets right in position, and whoop, bye-bye. Okay. Also had a moment in this game where the ball bounced and wasn't kind of aware of where the ball was coming in from Dixon's punt. Got down there, was kind of staring at the returner. Dixon, again, had the punt right down there, and maybe if he was a little bit more of being aware of what was happening around, he could have gotten to that punt and downed it there at the 2, as Dixon kind of set up for him to have happen. But this one right here, you get all the way down there. Dixon gives you enough air to get down there to get right in front of the punt returner, and you just let him walk on by you. Jarek Reed. Come on, man. Come on. Let the guy walk right past you. How are you going to do that? All right, let's move it on down the line here. And we got the pumpkin picks just in under the wire here, as I had to sweep it in here and get it filmed up right before we went live today. I don't know if she's guiding to the left side now or not, or she's just going, she's gone rogue on us, I think. But let's go to it. Let's get to it. It's, of course, as I try to tap into the ethereal feline psychic ability, let's see what Pumpkin thinks about in Pumpkin's picks. Oh, don't be mad at Pumpkin this week, folks. It's not her fault. It's not her fault. You guys know how this goes. Away team on the left, home team on the right. Packers, Seahawks. We put salmon in front of the dish. Where does she go? I don't set it up. I don't guide her. I let her pick on her own. You can see right there. The results are legit, but unfortunately our girl sold on us today. She sold on us today, I tell you. She went for the Packers, said it was a close game, but she's giving them the dub. She's giving them the dub, unfortunately. So didn't want to see it, but sadly it's the way it went down. So Pumpkin picks go down. Thought we'd get it here today. Thought she'd go the other way, but she's going Packer land on this one. Too bad, so sad. But close game. She wasn't sure on it. You can see she's a little tentative there. Little tentativeness, uncertainty. Then she finally goes for the dish there at the end. So yeah, you just got to give it to her. She's tapping into an otherworldly power that we can't understand. We can't hope to understand. All right, let's move it on down here to the... Is this the right one do I got? Yeah, this is the right one I got here. Let's move on to the next segment here, which is the one I like to call the biggest hit of the week. I know the NFL is taking out hitting. They're finding these boys for patty caking, but there's still a hit or two every game you can find that is pretty on nice.
The biggest hit of the week.
And this is going to be a double dip feature, folks. We've got our underrated player of the game, our underrated hero of the weekend. We've got our biggest hit of the week, supplied here by our guy, Tyrice UTEP two-step Knight. My man coming out here doesn't even really fully load up on this hit. 48, bottom left hand of your screen. Just comes in. Witherspoon's flying in at the guy's legs, which caused the guy to reroute late on this play. And then Tyrice Knight just gives him a nice lick. Beautiful hit by Tyrice, who really shined in coverage in this game. Had a maybe his best game of the year so far. Love the hit. He brings some of this. He's got a little bit of concrete in his pads. But a nice little stick here on his part. Clean, takes his head out of the hit. Knocks that man sideways upon contact. That's just like what you like to see with him. He's got a little bit more there than these typical linebackers do now in this day and age. He ain't that 225 guy. He's a 235 legit. I'd wager to guess. But nice hit there by Tyrice Knight, who will also, like I said, be our underrated hero of the week this week. He was nice. All right, let's keep moving here. Back to the allergies again today. Let's look at the next part here. This is one I always like to touch upon. Get my stuff prepared here, folks. Sometimes you have it ready, you know. Sometimes it's just not. Where are we at? Oh, there we go. All right. So, always like to look at certain calls for the game as we can. We're going to be taking a look at, of course, some of those underrated hero moments of the week from Tyrice Knight. I also want to take a look at that gap stuff that we're running from this game because we really unveiled that in full force this week with the running game. But let's take a look at first the play call, to me, that hit just a little bit different.
This one hit different.
Our play call this week is going to be centered around goal line? Goal line? What? A play where you're on the half-yard line? Brandon, are you nuts? Like, any team can get a half yard when they need it. Why are you featuring that play? Because we all very well know that this team couldn't get a half a yard if their life was on the line. If it was a bucket of water in that half yard point and they had been in the desert for a whole summer without any water, they still couldn't get over the line. We know that about them this year. They've been unimaginative. They've been unable to get any kind of push off the line of scrimmage. It's been very stagnant prior to the snap, which is why I love this play so very much. And what you get right from the gate is a little bit of the old horrors on the surface of it, on the window dressing of it, of what Grubb has given us throughout this season. A real heavy goal line look. Everyone in the house on this play right now knows Seattle is not going to throw it. Who are they going to throw it to? 3 tight end look, no wide receivers. Yeah, 4 tight end looked, technically speaking, because Brady Russell's in your backfield. So you got Barner, you got Fant, you got Farrell Brown there also at the line of scrimmage. This is screaming to everyone in the stadium, even to those people up in the 300s, in the back of the 300 section that can't see, they're going to run it. And they're probably going to run it right up the middle. That's what this is telling the defense instantaneously as they walk up to the line of scrimmage. But then we get a little bit of that grubby action. And what is it? I'm going to chop this up into a couple different points of this play, in 2 points, because I want to show this, first and foremost, what's going on off of these adjustments. Look at all of this movement. Look at all of this, just this guy here, that guy there, redirect by Barner. And then it's 3 simple movements. You're going to a split backfield. Boom, boom. Barner goes into motion. But look at what it's doing with the Cardinals. You get to the point with the Cardinals here where you've got this guy up here. Look at him, how he's pointing. Look at how he's panic pointing here. Look. This is what you want from a defense late. You want them late, just like that guy there is at the top of your screen. You want them late, trying to handle all of their communication. You got that? You're over here. You get to the, hey, over here. No, he's over here. He's over. And then, God forbid, you might have a couple players communicate two different separate things by what they're reading in the moment. So you take this from a simplistic read of this is going to end up in the B gap, or this is going to end up in the A gap, or on the other side. We think it's pretty easy to see this is where you're going to be. Charbonnet is kind of more power back than he is get to the edge guy. We can read it this way. You take it from that to split backfield. Oh, wait, is this, and Charbonnet now leaves the backfield. You go, well, you're not going to give it to the tight end. Wait, what are they doing now? Budda Baker gets pulled a little bit wider here. Budda Baker, who's a monster in the run game, who you're worried about in the run game. This is a key point, is looking also at where Baker is and him trying to communicate back over to the top side of the screen. I know I'm belaboring this just a little bit, but this is the key point of running all of this pre-snap motions and these shifts, is that you force the defense into this communication that they have to do. And oftentimes you're going to leave them in a spot where they're not really prepared or ready for what you're really running at the end of the day. In my opinion here, Budda Baker's not. Watch Budda Baker, number 3 here, the lineman who moved out aligned into the slot with Charbonnet. So when you adjusted to the slot, he's the guy that guided out here. Now watch how he's just a half step slow to getting over to Charbonnet on the end around. See that? Versus if you have him up here in the line of scrimmage and he can help out get in the A and the B gap and he can help clean, muck all that up in there and make it more of a pile of bodies. You've pulled him out of the screen. You've got him looking at the line of scrimmage, and that's a little bit to me of an uncertainty on what he's going to be doing or what he thinks Seattle's looking to do here. I think you caught them off guard with this. But look at how late he is to get over there. Just that little step gives Charbonnet that full freedom to get in at that point. And everybody else, of course, blocks it up wonderfully. When you create the numbers game to this side, when you've pivoted him over here, look at what you've also done. Everything's clogged in down here, right? Tight sets, tight splits here. 1, 2, 3, 4 guys right here. Just do, shoulder to shoulder. But then you see there's some space here, right? 2 guys out here wide to this edge. Now you've brought by the split backfield here, Brady Russell to that side. So you've got almost a 4-on-2 here. You're obviously going to peel some guys down to the second level, but you like that numbers game to that fly sweep, don't you? Especially if you can get Budda Baker to be a beat late, getting back across the scheme. And that's what you get. Pile of bodies. I mean, Noah Fant gets blown up on this play. Charbonnet's got to reroute in the backfield and get around him because he gets kind of blown up. It's a good recovery by Fant because he ends up mirror blocking him and just kind of pivoting around it so that he doesn't give the defender a pathway to getting to the ball carrier. But everybody else lays their block, and you always have that numbers game and how you've created the shifts prior to the snap. You come out in one alignment, you move to something else to give yourself an advantage prior to the snap, and you help yourself in moments where you've struggled like we have down along the goal line. Brilliant play call there by Grubb, but really something that we can build upon and do more of, I think, this season is leaning more into those shifts, more of that misdirection. Even some of the stuff that you did in that gap scheme in this game, the counter stuff, had a lot of misdirection built within it. And I think this really is a struggle for these defenses to get all of their communication up to point, right up to the snap. When you challenge them in that way versus coming out there, you're in a goal line, you're stagnant, you've got your fullback, and you're just trying to, we're not going to confuse you. We're just going to be big boy football about it and, bash your brains in because we're just that tough and big. It just doesn't work that way in the NFL. If they know you're running, they know where you're running. Even if they don't have the best of, let's say, personnel, they can still stop you. They can still find a way to get some penetration back there because you're giving them kind of a cheat on the play. All right, let's keep it moving here. Sorry, 1 sec, folks. Whew. All right, let's go to our underrated hero of the week here. I want to cover this here. Let's go a little bit and look at this. Every game I like to take a look at guys that aren't necessarily the stars from the game. Certainly Zach Charbonnet is like star from the game. Maybe you want to go to JSN and some of the big catches that he had the moments in this game, and they're noteworthy. But I think there was one other guy in this game, especially defensively, that stood out to me in this game for everything he brought to the table and how well he's played this year. And this was a culmination of that. The guy I was just talking about in the biggest hit section, and that is going to be Tyrice Knight, our rookie 4th round pick out of UTEP. He has just been great this year, all the way around. And it's in just so many different areas. Here, getting into the backfield really quickly off the block. It's meant here for the tight end, being McBride, to give him a little bit of a block and then peel off of it. He keeps his hands active here, gets his hands up. Great job also by Derek Hall, who I was just talking about a second ago as well, for how active he was in this game of getting the pressure on Kyler. So he's got to probably throw this a beat early, but Tyrice Knight also being in the right position at the right moment to get his hand up there and tip that ball up. It's actually a completed pass, but it's technically going to be a negative 2-yard gain on the play. Come back, again in run defense here, 48, middle of your screen. He just gets right around the block of Tip Ryman. Tip Ryman, one of your better run blocking tight ends in this last draft out of Illinois. He slides right around the inside shoulder of him, keeping his eyes on the back the whole time, innately doing so. I see this with both Ernest Jones and him, that ability to have their eyes laser locked like the Superman laser beams coming out of their eyes, locked onto the running back at all times, while they're still able to navigate around the blockers coming downhill on them. Whereas some guys have to go and look at that blocker, right? They have to stare at the blocker and go, okay, how am I going to get off of your block? How am I going to get my hands? Where are your hands? How can I look at your hands, knock your hands down, pull in a nice rip swim move and get around you? Instead, what you'll see with Jones and Tyrice is a play like this where they'll just bounce. They'll just bounce with a little bit of quickness, a little dip to their shoulder, and they're around the block. And again, this is a very capable tight end blocker here. Tyrice Knight gets right around it. Shout out to Jaron Reed, who also makes a nice play here. I believe it is. But he's in the position to make this play as well as Tyrice Knight. Nice play on his part. Keeping it going here. You got some excellent pass defense. How do you know when a linebacker, outside linebacker, is good in pass defense? When you can trust him in one-on-one situations with wide receivers. This is that Stanford kid, Wilson, the number 2 wide receiver for your Arizona Cardinals. This guy's not chopped liver. He's not necessarily a game breaker. He's not the long-term option there at wide receiver, but he's running a little zipper route here. And this is a route that would especially be tough for a linebacker to guard because you have to go 2 ways. It's not like a slant where you just lock in on the slant and you can stay on his hip. He's going to challenge you to change direction. And this is a guy that you outweigh by probably 30 pounds, being Tyrice Knight. So his ability to change direction, stop and start is going to be better than yours. And yet he doesn't give an inch up here. Kyler throws a poor pass, but even if Kyler had thrown a good pass, I'm not sure it's completed. And if it is completed, it's not going for more than maybe a yard or 2 gain. Play. You guys see here just another angle on that one. Kind of bottom left of your screen here. Again, just off coverage, on it the whole time. No wasted steps by him. If they make the catch there, hell, you might still be a negative. They're already kind of behind the sticks anyway, I guess. But good play by Tyrice. Again, coming back here in coverage. I'll run this a couple times so you can see it. You're going to see Knight here, the top side of your screen. First dropping to space, rallying back up, making the hit in space. And you can just see how he's got that little bit of extra beef where he hits a guy, they stop. There's none of this, he hits a guy, and then that guy falls forward over the top of him. He hits you, you go down. He's got that little bit extra thump in his pads. I showed you that on that hit he had earlier. But a nice play in space here. Good drop initially. Rally on up to where the Cardinals want to attack. Sees it the whole way. Very instinctive play on his part. But another very good play in coverage from Tyrice Knight. How about here? This isn't even a play he makes in coverage. It's just him taking away the first read. So Kyler, you at 48, center your screen. Wants to hit that route going right up the seam. He's closed it off. Things closed. Kyler just basically throws this away. He just whips that thing away. There's no chance of this being complete. He doesn't even look over to really see the guy's really open. He's just like, I'll airmail this. Let's live another day here. But he sinks that away. To my eyes on the footage here, 48's taking you down right to the back left of that first read. And Kyler doesn't want to go through 3 or 4 reads. He just wants to go 1-2 city. I think this was also by the point where you'd Kyler throw a couple interceptions, so he was being very careful at this point. Okay, you come, Brandon. I'm impressed a little bit. But Wilson's not really a grade A receiver. What do you got? There's got to be something else than this, right? This is the best you got, right? There's got to be something else, right? Okay, that doesn't impress you? How about a top 6 pick in this last draft? How about that? Is that impressive enough? Does that get you yet there? Marvin Harrison Jr. operating from the slot, and your outside linebacker not only guards him up and makes a play on the ball? Are you freaking kidding me? That's a ridiculous play for an outside linebacker. On it the whole way. This guy was locked in this game, whether he's delivering hits, or whether he was playing awesome in the run game, or whether he was out there in coverage, including on wide receivers multiple times. He was capable in all areas of it. And when you look at this guy, as you see again here with him, he's in the slot, matched up there with Marvin, step for step, locked it in the whole way. This guy's slowly climbing up even the analytic sites and the grades. He's up into the top, I believe, 25 at this point as far as inside linebackers and how he's been graded. Keep in mind, there's going to be 2 of those on every single team, so getting up in the top 25 is more than just a little bit significant for a guy who is right now essentially a first-year kid, a rookie 4th rounder, just playing his first action. And when you look at his grades on the season, what does stand out about it is that he's been well graded all the way down the line. Run defense, 71.3. Pass rush, 73.6. Coverage grade, 62.6. No liabilities in what he's doing right now. He gives you pretty good all-around play all across the board in whatever you ask him to do, and he's even been a pretty decent blitzer at the times that they've sent him, and that is he does have a sack. Remember on that game from a couple weeks ago when him and Tyrice Knight were running a little loop game out of the double-A gap mug pressure. Tyrice Knight, though, is really coming on, solidifying himself at the inside linebacker for now and in the future. It's not merely just some good performances. It's that he's solidifying himself as a guy with some real upside, with some real ceiling to him. Can be much better than just an average player in this league, can have some real impact from the position. And it's another one of those just great developments for the Seattle Seahawks team this year. And what's really turned around is this year has moved on. But Tyrice Knight, way to go, man. Awesome job on your part. I want to get to a couple of other quick little cuts for you guys on the film of this. And I want to show you guys a few of these gap scheme runs, because these are the ones where this is definitely something that you're going to be able to build upon going into this future of this year. I no doubts about that whatsoever. And where you really like the gap scheme run, married particularly with the grub scheme, is Grubb has fluidity in running between 2 tight end sets, but also when he wants to go to 4 wide, 3 wide, because he can really at that time keep a numbers game inside against you, where if you have a too high shell over the top and you're going to keep that too high shell, then he's going to have a real good chance of drawing a numbers game to whatever side of the field he wants to run that gap scheme. And when he's got Lucas and Sa'atoa, he's got 2 movement-based guys for the position who can do this type of stuff well. Sa'atoa moved a lot in that Utah scheme where they wanted to have their guys run the ball and do a lot of different style of running and how they ran. So they asked their linemen to do a lot of different things. But having the ability to pull those guys back across the scheme, in this situation, you're only having Sa'atoa pull back, but most of this day when you're running it right, you're having both Lucas and him run it. Both of these guys can do that. You're not asking them stepping outside of a skill set they haven't done in the past. It is in their bag. It's in their toolkit. It doesn't need to be developed. And when you do spread everybody out and you get the Cardinals, as you see here, look at the 4 side guys dropping in coverage. So this is a little bit that numbers game I talk about, where if you have a team that wants to drift into a heavy amount of zone and drop to a heavy amount of depth in their coverage, and then you spread them out with the cornerbacks on the outside as well, and then you're peeling over a lineman from one side of the field to the other, or two linemen from one side of the formation to the other, you're going to leave defensive linemen who will be kind of unblocked, but also out of the play completely by those pulling linemen. And then you're going to have a bunch of bodies to roll to the play side. And you should be able to lay, if you have any kind of success with laying the blocks to the point of attack, like we see here, where Farrell Brown gets his block laid. We've got A.J. Barner in front of Sa'atoa. He gets his block laid. If you look at this play, it's so well designed. Sa'atoa doesn't actually block anybody. I'll run it for you guys full speed again, but watch Sa'atoa on this play, who never really finds anybody. It's just such a well-designed scheme and set up, and you're catching the Cardinals in just the right defense with their drift to zone, that it works great. They technically have a blitzing linebacker there going into that backside gap, and that's where it gets even better. We're saying nothing of having just a front 4 or a 6-man box. If you get the defense blitzing to the wrong side, you're going to tear them apart, and we're going to see that on one of these runs here with Charbonnet, of course, on the big 50-yarder. But a brilliant play call here by Grubb to go to this. They went to the gap in this game more than they had throughout the whole year. If you take the number of gap runs they had in this game versus the rest of the season, none more so than this game. And not where you go, well, so you've had like 150 gap runs. No, like you have more gap runs than you had coming into this game total. Like total. So this was a very purposeful thing on their part as to why they did it or what they were trying to do. Where's this one at? Where's my 2? Oh, live stuff, folks. Oh, yikes. All right. Let's lose my stuff. Where's my thing at? All right. So I had something to show you guys, and my deal's not showing up for some reason. What the hell? Okay, sorry, folks. Live stuff here. Interesting. Okay, we'll try it like this. We'll just do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. All right. I want to show this one because this was that big play, so I wanted to make sure I got all the parts of it. First play again, I want to show on this is the adjustment first and foremost. I don't think Gino's got enough of a shout out for this and setting the stage up here. And this is going to be for the 50-yard run by Charbonnet, which, yes, was a counter play here. And you see with the Cardinals, you got the too high shell that I talked about. Gino feels something going down at the line of scrimmage. You can see he's tactically changing the play here. He's making sure everyone gets the communication. Noah Fant gets outside, make sure he communicates it to your slot in JSN. You can see that Fant goes from being somewhat of an H-back position out in as a wide receiver here. So this is something that he's seen, that he sensed as Gino from something he had seen off of tape. You've got to give a lot of props to Gino on this one before we even get to the play, because I believe he checked into this here. I think he sensed the light box, for instance, with the too high shell on the top, and he said, I can attack this in the run game. So take note of that first here before we get to the second part and how he's sort of taking measure of that. Now we go to the second part of this, which is the run itself, and you see Budda Baker come from the high side of the screen, just like the previous run I showed you, right? Just like the previous run I showed you, where again, it's already devastating if you bring those two blockers back across the scheme with how you're setting up the numbers. It becomes deadly if you get a defender to run himself out of the play. Budda Baker runs himself out of the play with that blitz call. I think that Gino caught this early. Budda tried to hide it. He saw once Gino had caught the counter on it, he went, hell, he's caught us on the blitz. A lot of teams will do this where you might think that, okay, once the quarterback catches us in the blitz, now I call off the blitz. Sometimes they do that. Sometimes, though, what they'll do instead of calling off the blitz is then just show the blitz, come up all the way to the line of scrimmage and force it. And that's what he does here. There's two different ways you have of attacking it that way, but Budda recognizes in the chess match between him and Gino here, oh my gosh, he's changed the play. He sees my blitz coming. F it, I'm going to bring it up on the blitz. I run myself out of the play, though, because you can see you caught him at the best time here with your two guys on the right side of the line of scrimmage pulling back across the line of scrimmage to the essentially left side. And you've got the Cardinals licked here. And then Charbonnet, of course, just makes a nice cut up the field rather than widening that out as he gets it past the line of scrimmage, not allowing the rest of the defenders to rally up. But you spread everybody out. What I just talked about before, this is even more so than that prior play where you've got the 3 wide to the bottom side, 1 wide to the top side. So you spread everybody out, and then you're running that counter with those 2 guys. And so just think about how this goes, where you end up with your linemen and 3 linemen down there dealing with just all of that pile of bodies. All that pile of bodies. So you have only 3 down linemen here, right? That top side guy on the high side of the defensive line there, he doesn't matter. He's so far lined out in a wide 9 technique that he's irrelevant to this play. It's just those 3 down linemen. And when you really think about the fact that one of them's almost aligned out as a 3 tech, basically, and then you just got the 2 on the inside, that's all you got to take care of to go get the space to that side. Why? Because you've widened things out with the wide receivers. And you spread everything out with these secondary players so that when these 2 guys come back across the formation, there's nobody home. And Budda's ran himself out, and look at that wide 9. He comes all the way off the end on the backside, and he's like, oh, hell, I can't do anything on this play. Budda and the wide 9 completely get neutralized on this play without ever being blocked. Just because you caught him at the right time, Gino with the adjustment at the right time. But this is also something that can go forward because this is built within the spread scheme. He's not having to change his designs, being at grub, to make something like this work. It's right there within the spread to still be able to utilize this. And it's going to put defenses into a pickle as to what you want to try to decide to counter it. Do you want to keep an extra man down around the line of scrimmage? And now when we got our guys on the outside like a DK or like a JSN or even Tyler at that point, and they're getting the one-on-one coverage out there, you're going to trust yourself out there, especially for a team like Arizona in this game that wanted to bracket DK when he was out there on the field in this game. It puts him in that pickle. There's not an easy adjustment to be had against this ground attack. It's part of the reason that the Cardinals pretty much wholly lean on it. That's their whole ground attack and read option stuff with Kyler. That's pretty much it. They'll run a little bit of some extra stuff, but that's pretty much it. Shout out on this play as well. Got to show you one more angle of this. Is my man Atoa Lamea on this play. Look at him just crumble that defensive end there on the high side, huh? Not bad, huh? Satoa come right back across. Like I said, comfortable doing this. You have some linemen that they move like Frankenstein when you ask them to start pulling in space. It's like they're got a tow hitch on their back. And this guy, he'll move in space very comfortably, and Lucas the same way. Granted, as long as the knee's feeling good, but Lucas looks like the knee's feeling just fine. They absolutely have that in their bag to do it. So just all this marries together well. Goes to the scheme, goes to the player's skills. They have the background in doing it. You've got running backs that can work with this. Walker can make this work as well. A couple of other runs in this game. This one was one that was in a 3rd and 25, but still another nice run. Another one where you're just getting all those guys out in front. And then another block or two in here, and he spills this up for a 26, 27-yard gain on 3rd. You can see the sticks at the top of the screen there on the orange. One more block, 2 more blocks in here, and he gets this through. It's another one where you end up with a backside guy chasing who's just barely able to influence the play at all, and you never really blocked him. Even the guy Charbonnet gets by, the bottom 2 guys on the defensive line, watch those 2 guys. You never get a handed block on really either of those 2 guys. But by the nature of the play and the design of the play, they've been run out of the play. And they've got to get there with some expediency. They can't just take their time to try to get over to Charbonnet. You can see they're scrambling to try to get to him. Because if you don't get there in time, there's a wall of blockers in front of that back, and he's going to go house it. And those players are aware of that. Another one here. Love this for some of the misdirection. You have JSN pre-snap moving in one direction away from where you're going play side. Look at the linebacker bounding away. Another play where by the scheme, you're taking a player away, taking a tackler away just by pre-snap motion. So lock in on the guy bouncing around right there kind of near the slot and how he's trailing the whole way, JSN. And the safety, see how the safety closes the JSN side with the adjustment. Feel the movement. Just feel the movement of the defense of the Cardinals with that motion. Feel how everybody's drifting to a side of the field with that motion. And then you bring everything back the other way. And you're not just bringing it back, you're bringing it back with that gap counter kind of game here. Where both Lucas and Saatoa, bam, bam, first down. Saatoa first, bam. Lucas next, bam. First down. And look again how you hit that scheme just right. 3 blockers to the high side of the formation. The single on the down low. Hit him with the crack back. Lucas catches a slight little defensive back. Easy money. If I'm Grubb, I'm living in this stuff all day long as we move forward. And you pair it with the misdirection on this play, which I'd love him to do even more so. Get a guy moving pre-snap that way. Get the eyeballs, show him the eye candy, hit him back the other way. When Grubb's been at his best this year, when he's taken some of the best stuff from Washington, what he did there, this is that type of stuff. Last one. Another gap scheme. Lucas, Saatoa. Might as well call him Secret Serviceman here for Zach Charbonnet. Just throwing their bodies not in front of bullets, but bodies. And what chance do these poor defensive backs? You're curling around here And you got two, God bless them, defensive backs filling the hole here. And they're sticking their nose in. And what chance do they have? 320-pound lineman at full speed, and you've got to fill the hole. So you got to come up there, and Kazir White's got some decent size, but he's an undersized linebacker. He's one of these 225-pound Maven guys. And you got to hold up with a guy who's got, 5 yards of a head start, and you got to stand tall and try to set the edge. No chance. It's a 4-yard run, folks. This one doesn't go for a lot, but that's a easy 4-yard run every time. And this is the type of run that'll take a defense's soul too, because you'll wear a defense down. You give them 10, 15 of these plays over the course of the game. You get to the fourth quarter, and they've had about enough of that. They're done with the lineman pulling in space, clobbering him every single time downhill. That's not fun. It's one thing when the guy's right across you and he's got no head start. Give him a 3-4 yard head start, and it starts to get a little bit worrisome out there from a defender's aspect, especially giving up 100 pounds on a guy, or not 100 pounds, but 80. I'm not trying to set that edge. I'm here to cover guys. That's what I do. That's my job. But some great runs shown off in this game out of that gap scheme. It's fairly simple. You can add some different flavors to it. You can do some shifts. You can do the pre-snap motion. But at the end of the day, it is what it is and what it's trying to accomplish. Get those two linemen pulled from one side. You have edge defenders over here to this side who basically are not even a part of the play. They don't even really get touched. You get these guys to this side. The front side guys try to climb up to the second level. These guys get the blocks pinned up basically right at the line of scrimmage, and you tell your running back, get downhill. And you should have a wall of blockers. So fun play. Also be an awesome play if you can get eventually those moments of where you get the back downhill and you get that envoy out in front of him. And he's just got 3 blockers going, and he can put his hand up on the guy's back, as he's running down the field. And he's just got big hog mollies just out there, just bam, 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 taking them apart. Let's see where you guys are at today, though. I appreciate you guys watching. If you could for me, hit that like button, as you guys do help me out on the channel growing with that type of stuff. We've had some great growth here on the channel, and appreciate everyone, including you, Megan, out there. Thank you for the big $200 donation. All of the donos as well, in addition to that last night on the Roundtable show. I know that they appreciate it out there, so very, very kind of you guys for doing that, girls, doing that on that side of it. If you can for me today, please, folks, hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. Helps the channel grow immensely, and I would thank you for that. We got a couple donos here, and then I'll jump over to you guys over here in the chat and see where everybody's at. Jeffrey Ball, thank you for the $2 donation. Did you see the McAfee show gave us a number 2 offensive line this week? Kind of hard not to. When you do have the performance where your quarterback isn't sacked and he's barely hit, and you run for all those yards, and not only is it that Charbonnet is able to run for some yardage, but McIntosh, in addition to that, I think you've got to give a tip of the cap there to that team and that performance and what they put out there this week. That was legitimate, and something that I think that they can continue to build forward, because this isn't a Bradford out there and some of his up and down performance he would give you. This is guys in Lucas who we knew if Lucas's knee's right, the player you're getting. You do. People can lean on this whole part of people try to tell me he'll never play again. He'll never play again. He'll never be the same of what he once was. And, we'll see is what I said. And I think that he has no doubt stabilized the position from where we've been the past 2 years there with Stone Forsythes and Jason Peters and even Mike Jarrell, who did yeoman's work out there. It's not his fault as a rookie. He's just not ready to go. I think he's got a bright future. But him, Sa'atoa, getting kind of hooked down in there. Laken Tomlinson, even if it's that he gives you a sort of an every other game or 2 out of 3, he'll be solid. And the third game, he'll be like, man, I'm getting old. Still, you're starting to get this thing a little bit better bit by bit by bit. And that's encouraging and good to hear that they're getting recognized. The Real Cheese, thank you for the $5 donation. How much money do we free up with the potential release of Draymond and Uchenna Nwosu? And for no reason, how much could Micah Parsons demand? Yeah, this is a subject that started to just kind of come up a little bit, hasn't it, Real Cheese? Up out of the ether, as I like to say. The current situation right now with the savings and the guys that I would expect are going to be cap saving type deals that you would go to there would be Uchenna, to your question, is at $8.4 million, and Draymond Jones is at $12 million. So you would save collectively $20.4 million if you were to release those guys with cap savings and an ability to go after potentially a guy like Micah Parsons. I don't know if the Hawks are going to do this. It is certainly one that would require a lot of things to move together and align for it to happen. You would need, of course, the Cowboys to not want to go out there and give Micah the money, and or be willing to at least acquiesce to Micah's demands on this one, which is possible, where the Cowboys could be leaning in that. I look at 2025 right now. The Cowboys do not have a ton of cap space. They have $22 million. So they may look at it like, we have a team that's coming off a season where we didn't win, and we just paid CD and we just paid Dak, and maybe we need to stop paying everybody and start to, pull some of this down a little bit, or pick up some different kind of compensation to offset some things. And so this would take them getting into that state of mind, of course, to do that. I think what does make this interesting, real cheese, about Micah Parsons is not really what he would want as far as a salary, to be honest with you. And my reasoning on that would be that you probably could just take something like the 49ers baseline. Let's do that. And what I mean by that is, let's take the 49ers baseline of Bosa, right? He just signed his deal 2023. He signed the new deal. I have his cap numbers up here, as you can see. And what you'll notice about this is that if you do sign a new guy like this, you can take his base salary down as low as you want. You can give him something like the 49ers did here with Bosa, where they gave him $50 million of bonus money. And they were able to spread that out over the time in the way that they gave it to him. So they prorated it all out. So you can see that in the first couple of years of Bosa's deal, 2023, he's got an $11 million cap hit. 2024, he's got a $14.5 million cap hit. 2025, he's got a $20.5 million cap hit. So for a man that signed a deal well over $30 million a year, you're up to the third year of his deal here, right? And he still hasn't crossed into the $30 million threshold. Now, he crosses there very strongly once you get into 2026, of course, and this is some of the craziness of the Niners cap game and how they've played this, and why you get guys like my man Jesse out there with Last Second Sports saying it'll be 2027 before they compete again, because they've stretched all their contracts out in this way. But the baseline is that you can make the first few years of this deal affordable to you if you want to make the deal go. It takes you being willing to do it. That's for sure.
Different.
My bad. The play call did hit different. It takes you being willing to give him the big contract, the monster deal, but you can afford it as far as within the cap. Yes, because there's more cuts and releases we could make in addition to this. I also think there could be some interesting trade scenarios you could put together for Micah that wouldn't be just you throwing a cavalcade of draft picks at the Cowboys for the foreseeable future. That there's actually some stuff that you could do as kind of finding a common ground there that could make this really interesting. And so we'll see if they do it. We'll see if this is really an in-play situation. And it does seem like Micah's kind of firing the first shot of trying to maybe start to inch his way out of town here. I think some of that too comes from the Cowboys' negotiating tactics, where they tend to be very hardline with their players and drive these negotiations out with guys down to the 25th hour, even into the season. And not all players are going to love that. And maybe Micah wants to find an organization and give them the money off the rip, or just wants to go to a different organization. We'll see on that one. Sanchez, thank you for being a member of the Hawks Nest for 26 months. I appreciate you for that. I was most excited to see K-Mac take advantage of his opportunity. Hopefully, we get to see more of it the rest of the season. Well, I do think it is trending, Sanchez, towards Walker not playing this week, which would mean more of, I think, McIntosh, but I would echo your thoughts on this. I think that there's room to find touches for all three of the backs, and that you can have your number one guy, but the other guys can get their way worked in here. I think especially taking into account with a guy like Walker, that he has been a guy that's tended to get dinged up. And while he's maybe not had the major knee injury or major injury that he's had a plenty of this and that and this and that. And that maybe you're best suited with him as a guy to keep him into more of that 10 to 15 touch range game at most. But I certainly wouldn't mind seeing it with either McIntosh. He seems like a hungry guy. He seems like he's ready to go, and he can provide a useful skill set to this team. We haven't even gotten to see Sanchez, what he can do out of the backfield, and that's one of his biggest strengths. Megan, thank you for the $5 donation. She says, still waiting to see if the $200 is matched. Doubt it. And thanks for the walk-in co-sell hybrid mixed view from the top, B. Oh, my pleasure, Megan. My pleasure. And thanks for dropping the $200. I don't think anybody else is going to match it in there. Would be my reckon to guess is that that one's going to go as the top one that we're going to have in there for quite a bit of time there, Megan. So our people, you and the rest come in there, and I think we show way more love than anybody else in that deal. We got some fan base, they do pretty good with it, but we definitely come in there right. And thanks for doing that. I appreciate you. Very kind of you. But no one's going to be matching that. And my pleasure on that. We may be getting to the eventual point of that round table. It's just me doing impressions. The guy's never going to talk. It'll just be me doing the impressions for the back half of the show on the donos. Now that the other fan bases have discovered it too, Megan. Daniel and Barry, how you doing, man? Morgan, what's up? Joe Smith, hello. This is just watch some Packers tape. Offensively, Packers have a lot of pre-snap motion. Need to be ready for that. Also tackling on Jacobs and Kraft. Need to be dialed in. Good test for our newfound D. Amen. Amen. Very true. Very true. All right. We're going to start. And I'm probably not going to go super late tonight, guys, just to let you know that. We'll do a little bit of the QA tonight, as always, but I'm trying to wrap up a video here for the channel offline. Why You Mad Bro says, imagine we draft Will Campbell and put him at left guard. This O-line would be amazing. I'd love to do that, Why You Mad Bro. I certainly would love to do that. I do think that there will be a probably team that grabs him up in the top 10-ish, though. I don't know if he'll slide down that far, but it is early in the scouting process. It's possible that he does dip, I suppose, especially with the testing and all that. Thomas says Grubb shows he's improving. Problem is that the fans and certain media people are patient enough to wait to see what happens end of the season. Yeah, as you know with me, that's where I stand with it. Is let's give it that time, see where it eventually lands out, and make our kind of evaluation for there. I think he has shown some moments of growth here from the season, and just keep kind of building on stuff. You know, we got the tunnel screen, we got the gap stuff work good. We know with this passing attack, he's still got the deep shots built within. A little bit of a screen game he's kind of found here too, not just the tunnel screen, but some other typical screen stuff like bubble and a running back screen this past week. Ryan, he said, notification for this, like a glutton for punishment. I got wrapped up in the news, which has ruined my mood tonight. Thomas says, if LeMay and Lucas improve this season, I could very well see Seattle get a left guard in the draft like Booker or Jackson or free agency. It's crazy. Seattle has a couple of weaknesses. Very few, man, as the season is fully materialized and we've seen this talent take root as it has and the positions to settle as they have. You are going to really have a great chance of walking into this offseason with not a lot of real big needs to have to address. No team goes into an offseason with nothing to address. Maybe except that Tampa Bay team that won a Super Bowl a couple years ago and they returned all of their starters on every side of the ball. But even to that point of things, we'll pretty much be returning all of our starters to both sides of the ball, save for maybe 3 positions. And that's pretty big if they can be in that stage to do that, because that just means to me that's all the more you can laser lock in on what you want to address and then hammer it in a major way, i.e., Thomas, to your point, left guard and those kind of spots like that sit on the team. Why You Mad Bro says, damn, $17 million saved for Lockett. I think it's time for him to retire. Yeah, when you're looking at that much money you can save, decisions start to get a little bit clearer on that type of stuff. Thomas says there's no way Parsons will be available. Jones will not allow him to go, plus trading away talent when Seattle is slowly gathering it is more important. I'd rather have depth than a sending player right now. yeah, it's one that I'm not saying definitely. I would say this is a great probability of having had. And you're right about Jerry Jones. He doesn't typically let his guys get away. They will pay pretty much everybody, even though it's with tight-fisted kind of approach that they end up paying. It's begrudgingly. They will pay. But this also is a bit of the player empowerment age, Thomas, as we've seen at times, where the old rule of law of I have leverage over you. Okay, Micah? You're mine, all right? You're mine. I own you. I own you. I got franchise tags, and I will put them on you until the end of time. I don't know. Players can squawk now. Parsons got a little bit of a bullhorn he might be able to utilize. And does Jerry have the stomach for doing that? And another part of this with Jerry and what's going on with that Cowboys team is that, they haven't been good this year. And, you only have $20 million of cap space going into next offseason. I'm sure there's some moves that they can move here and there to get around a little bit of that. But you start putting together a new contract together for Parsons, and then you don't have a lot of extra money to make. And so, okay, you sign Parsons, but you haven't really improved your team by and large. Zach Martin retires this offseason, so you have another major hole to fill there on the offensive side of the ball. I'm not saying it's where I think he'll go, but it's just I'd understand if they did. Cheer from Chieferton. Says, great channel, man. Keep it up. Thank you, Chieferton. Appreciate you subbing up. And thank you for the kind words. Love what I get to do. Space, Belichick to UNC. Is that where his girlfriend goes to school? Maybe where he picked her up. Huh? If you had on the bingo card Bill Belichick going to North Carolina as his next coaching stop, you win the candy bar. I don't get that one at all from Belichick's perspective. He's going to want to get into this NIL thing. He's going to want to deal with the paying of college players and dealing with. We'll see how this goes. A guy like Carroll, I could see being more patient and able to deal with it in the landscape of things. Belichick's patience level for that type of stuff, I don't know. Sanchez said, should we root for a tie tomorrow? A tie wouldn't be bad. No, I want a Rams loss. I just want the Rams to lose. I think the Niners are out of this anyway. Rams lose. Just lose, Rams. Just lose. Thomas, if Parsons trade for the right price, maybe, but I want to keep Ball, Mafe, and also if Seattle either signs Gino or drafts a rookie quarterback. Well, it's going to probably cost you at a centerpiece point of it, Thomas, Mafe or Hall. You're probably looking at having to include one of them. I'm sure from Seattle's perspective, it'd probably be like, here's a Hall, here's a first round pick, and Kenneth Walker. I think you can come up with something kind of creative like that on this deal. It's still a long shot, but there's no way you're going to make the deal and still have those two guys coming, I don't think, out the other end of it. That'd be the one inroad we'd have to get a deal done with the Cowboys and what we'd be able to offer them in draft pick compensation and a player or two. War Chief, how you doing, man? How you doing, man? And Jeffrey Ball, Real Cheese, thank you for those donations. You too, Megan. Sanchez, thank you for the $2 donation. Is Noah Fant even on the team? He's there. He makes about a catch a week. He gets paid about $650,000 a catch. Something like that. I've done the math. Yeah, he's there, man. He had some injuries early on in the year and been back out the past couple of weeks since I think the Jets and hasn't done a whole lot. Definitely that's going to be one of the easier choices this offseason if it continues in the direction it's going. Robert Charles, thank you for the $2 donation. This is really some clear and helpful analysis. Well, thank you, Robert. I really appreciate that. I love what I get to do, and I hope that's if I can kind of bring stuff down from sometimes the super technical talk of stuff and get into kind of just some of the common principles of play, especially when we're doing breaking down a film. That's definitely the kind of the goal on it. So thank you. I appreciate that. I got a great job in what I get to do. ALG Investment. Thank you for the $5 donation, ALG. My favorite draft picks was Knight, Barner, and Lumea. They're making me look smart. Next year, do you like edge or right tackle better with the first round? It's a great question. It's a fantastic question. Boy, I'm a little bit, people are mentioning this ALG in the chat a little bit, and I don't like to be a reacher. I don't like to be like that 2-year-old toddler that's on the tips of his toes trying to get up in the top of that cookie jar up on the top of the refrigerator. But I'm finding myself on my tipsies here a little bit. And I'm sort of like thinking, you take a guy out there, you're into, let's say, 24-ish range, right? Let's say 23, 24, picking in the first round. And you got Booker from Alabama, and maybe Booker has a middle second round grade. But maybe there's a little bit of a draw there to go, so what? We take him in the first round. We go take our left guard in the first round, and we get the best left guard in the draft. And is that the worst thing to do at that point, especially with what you set the rest of the draft up for? Because if you've taken care of anything in free agency that offseason at that point, you don't have really a lot of needs. You can go from, what I'm trying to say is you could go from value for the rest of your draft. You could treat that first round pick like kind of a need, even though I think Booker's a pretty clean prospect. And even then you're only drafting him, let's say 20 spots higher than he would have gone foreseeably by how he was projected to go. But you feel very solid about that pick. And it doesn't have to be Booker. It can be fill in the blank of the guy who they have as the top guy on their board, right? So maybe they have a different guy that's a middle second round grade guy, but they're picking at 24. This would be 1 year, considering where the team is at and considering how close everything is together, where I might step a bit outside myself for that one pick because of how bad the line has been and how much of an issue this has served to be. But if they did just want to go off of true value, ALG, when looking at kind of the board right now for the way that this will probably play out, you're probably going to see there be the value of the edge guy on the board. And this has happened the last couple of years where there's a guy like this in back-to-back drafts. So 2 years ago, I would have said it was Will McDonald. Not that that's the best edge in the draft or the highest drafted edge in the draft, but this will be that really high upside guy that really flashes, super explosive. He'll fall into that low 20s range where he'll be picked. This past year, it was Chop Robinson. That was your guy that was going to dip on into that early 20s range. He would be picked, but he was that high upside kind of catch you'd get in there that was super explosive. Also Verse, of course, kind of in the same territory, very close to the same territory. So if you're talking about what I would anticipate to be the value spot there, if we are going off of value and not to reach for any need, I'd say it's probably likely to be edge or even a safety kind of position like a Malachi Starks or a Jada Barron, the kid out of Texas. That also might be a guy that they have, two guys that they might have really highly graded on their board too in there. Tackle, I think by the time that you get to the 20s ALG, You've gone through the top end guys and you're doing a little bit more, much like you'd be doing with a bit of the guard position there. You're doing a little more of a reach for need at that point. But that's obviously too before I've had a chance to really go full bonkers in this draft with all of the prospects and see where it really stands as far as the value goes and who's who and what's where and how's how. It's just sort of the initial blush would tell me that it's kind of like that, ALG. Edge is a certain possibility, though. Certainly a possibility. The value could be there. If the team moves on from Uchenna Nwosu and they're trotting out their Hall and Mafe, they may go back in and find somebody else in there that they really like as an edge guy in this draft and lean towards that with that value that's there with it. He's also ahead of whoever else they have on their board in that moment. Very feasible it plays out like that. And fits to form with recent years. Even more Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. Micah sucks in the run. He's a pass rusher. No, thank you. Yeah, I think to your point, he's definitely a guy that was an early inside linebacker, and I would wonder if there's going to be some of what they would use him as for in this Mike McDonald defense. I think he'd be freed up to be utilized in much more of a way where it's not just as off the edge guy, that they would go back and tap back into that background a little bit with his ability to play some of the, as an inside linebacker type on early downs, where you can get around a little bit of that. I think some of that's probably come from them trying to draw him out to the edge more and play him from the edge more out there with it. But remember too, we got Alan Durd in the house, and he is a guy that will be a big voice in that room. If Micah calls him and says, "Hey, bring me there, big dog," what's his outlook on Micah? Is he going to have some information he can provide the team that gives them that clear look as to why that could push that deal over the line? But again, we come back to, I don't think it's something that's likely to happen. I do think it, though, it's a worthy of possibility and worthy of discussion. And part of me does think about the possibility of going out there and getting a difference-making edge guy, a guy that's one of those guys that's just almost impossible to block off of the edge, and what that does for the defense. Something that, I don't think that Mike McDonald has really had. Maybe going back to Michigan when he had Hutchinson. Was he there for Hutchinson? I can't remember. No, I don't think he was. Yeah, I think he was there for Hutchinson. So, but I get it. He's definitely not a good early rundown edge. I wouldn't want him out there on early downs, but if you flex him out and use him with some of that linebacker background, and especially this defense that can be very creative in its usage of players, you can find some roles in there for him. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, we can talk draft after we lose our division to the Rams. I don't know, man. Rams are looking good, that's for sure, but who knows? Only 4 games left, but it still does seem like it's a lot to still be playing out, But yeah, we'll be getting deep in the draft as soon as we hit that wind-up point. Hopefully it's, after we win our Super Bowl. That's all I want. Playlist Trav says, this is my favorite show you do of the week. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Thanks for the feedback on that, Trav, because I wasn't sure this year, and I wanted to do this weekly roundup as kind of the staple part of the show, and wasn't sure if it would take root as much for fans on this. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are digging it, and I'll keep this one going. I want to get more of these kind of shows where we have things kind of locked in, and they're all kind of different flavors in what they bring, from the B&B to the play-by-plays to the post-game discussions to this kind of show, so that we're kind of always changing things up, even if it's just a little bit. Ortiz Ashton Genty goes top 5. I know people are saying the league is not high on running backs, but the last guy to do something like this in college was Marshall Faulk. We know how that turned out. So It's in play. I'm not one of those naysayers to say there's no chance for it to happen, because we've had running backs go in recent years high up in the draft, even as we'd gone through the age of teams telling you that they're not going to do that anymore. Ezekiel Elliott's and Saquon Barkley's. There's been a few. Bijan Robinson. And with Genty, could you easily come to the conclusion with him that he's got higher upside than Bijan Robinson potentially? Yeah, you could. And I think it certainly is possible, especially this year, War Chief. The part of that also goes in tandem with this is also some of the, lightness of the blue chip prospects in this draft, the true blue chippers. And Genty's one of those guys, but I think that there's an argument to be made about who are the true top 6, 7 guys. And team by team, you're probably going to get a little bit of a difference of opinion on that one. Why You Mad Bro says we should draft Jordan Birch. He would do good in our defense. Go Ducks. It's a good player. I watched him last year a little bit. Let's see what I have on him last year. I haven't updated him. I did look at some of where he's been performing at, and it does look like he's taken a step forward. Last year to me, he looked more kind of like a poor man's Mike Morris. Just a big defensive end without much twitch, with some inside-outside capability. Really good with his hands. And a guy that you thought probably long-term would work more into sort of a 3-tech-ish role, but he's taken steps forward this year. I got to be interested to see where he's doing it from the inside, outside. Haven't paid as close attention on that one, but that's definitely a guy to take a look at, especially as a guy who could be a power edge for this team. Wilbert says 49ers, oh my God, space. Thomas says, I just love Jake's theory about the Rams going to a Super Bowl when they won by 2 but got destroyed by the Eagles. But Seattle getting no respect, like the great Rodney Dangerfield says. It's true. They get no respect. No respect at all. No, I tell you, no respect. Jamarcus White. I feel like Grubb's ability to push the ball deep at ridiculously high success rate has been hindered by the pass pro in Seattle. Now that the pass pro is shored up, do you think he'll get back to it? Yeah, I think that back to deep shots. I think that there's a much more an ability to do that now. Yeah, Jamarcus, I do. It's a bit hindered, I think, by the 7-man soft zone drops that we're encountering, and the Cardinals at the head of this, because the Cardinals go very much between two extremes. They're either going to blitz the house at you, or they're dropping all those guys into pass coverage, and usually they're dropping them deep, which then is going to push the offense to do more of the dink and dunk to get up the football field. But as the confidence starts to be able to grow from Grubb's standpoint, where you stack up a couple of these performances with the line is holding up in that way, I think, yeah, it does start to breed a little bit more of that. And remembering Jamarcus with this, that this is a pull for Grubb. He wants to, unlike some spread guys that just want to stay in that sort of short range of things, he's one of those guys that truly wants to take the top off the defense. He's just looking for a reason. Just give me a reason. And he's got the, lighter fluid and the explosiveness to go here with Gino and DK and JSN, even Tyler, and what I think he can still do on that stuff. But you do need the pass pro, and I think he was limiting some of that stuff as the year went along, as bad as the pass pro was. So I think it was definitely hindering what they wanted to do prior. ALG, thank you for another $2 donation. He says, Packers, one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL. Indeed, they are. They do not get, watching their games, and I've seen a few of them this year, they just do not get any kind of real consistent pass rush. They do not have a very viable blitz game to what they bring. They're not going to surprise you a lot with that. They've got guys that I think that they had just kind of hoped would continue to develop as those pass rushers. Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, the other edge that they drafted a couple of years ago. Certainly Kenny Clark's a guy that they lean on a lot from the inside to give them some stuff from the inside as far as a pass rusher too. And they just don't get a ton out of those guys. It's a unit that's pretty limited, and they don't do a lot, really, in my opinion, to augment in free agency off the back of it to really help it out much more beyond that. So I think this is a game where you're going to have that time in the pocket to be able to survey from Gino's perspective and to Jamarcus' perspective above it. There's going to be those moments then to hit some of those deeper shots when those opportunities do present themselves. You can trust the line to hold up against this particular Packer front. Next week against the Vikings is going to be maybe a little bit of a different story with their blitz packages and how they can challenge you with that. But it's not that way with this Packers defensive line, that's for sure. Joe says, right now, Green Bay's favored by 3 points. I like the underdog role, especially at home. Me too. Hopefully gets that team attention. They still don't believe in you. They still don't believe in you. They think you're nothing. Look at Vegas. Look at Vegas right now. They kept sliding the points all last week on you. All last week. It was 2. Then it was 2.5. Then it was 3. Then it was 3.5. How much disrespect are you going to take? That'd be me as a coach in there. How much? They say they're going to come into your house and spank your ass. Herbicide says if Haynes can get it down at right guard, he for sure can't be. If Haynes can't get it down at right guard, he for sure can't be a left guard. I think we should drop that dude after the season's through. I'd be surprised to see them drop him that quick, but I think that they're probably pretty disappointed with where he's at as a guy that's supposed to be pretty ready-made for this league. Why you mad, bro? The Hawks Nest. Is there a chance we release Gino before his signing bonus hits? No. No, we would trade Gino, if anything. He's either going to be signed or he would be traded. You might trade him before option bonus hits. But even then, I'm not sure what's really... Yeah, so he doesn't, you don't have any. Yeah, the signing bonus is, the team is on the hook for the full signing bonus. Why you mad, bro? So if it's a signing bonus, then you trade a guy and he's got a signing bonus left, then that signing bonus hits your cap instantaneously. The only way that you can get around it is if there's an option bonus into future years that hasn't hit. So if there was a 2025 option bonus, then you could trade him before the league new year to that, and then the team would be on the hook for that if they traded for him, but not the bonus that he has left, which is $13.5 million for, or what is it for 25? Let me see. Yeah, it's $13.5 million for 2025. Stupid Shinji says a little bit behind, but why would you pay Parsons with Love and Bryant playing good ball? Well, Micah Parsons, Stupid Shinji plays edge. Julian Love and Kobe Bryant play safety. So those are just two different positions there. The theory would be on this, if I was to say, and this is not my opinion necessarily, let me not say that this is like what I want to do, or this is just something to say again as I try to say, like, why would they do this, or is there intelligence behind them doing this? Let's preface this a little bit on this one. The team may look at it with Hall and Mafe that they have two very good edges, but they're not great edges maybe. In the case of Hall, it's been very quiet as we've gone down the stretch of this season. And the team could see potentially a market opportunity here present itself where, though maybe Parsons isn't a guy that's maybe on the same level of an all-around player as a Myles Garrett or TJ Watt, is he kind of in the vicinity? And are there few of those kind of cats walking the earth in the NFL? I think yes and yes. So you look at that edge thing and you go, look, we've got solid guys. We can have still one of the solid guys over there, but then we can bring a great guy in onto the other side of it. It was a difference maker type that's hard to find, and we're not going to as readily be able to locate. And a way they may go with this. I don't think it's going to likely to happen, but it's a way where I could see the wheels of it turn in this way, where it just suddenly kind of comes out of nowhere. No one's expecting it. You go, well, you could kind of expect if you look at the surface of this a little bit on what's kind of at play here. So it would be a bit of that drive to go find a little bit of that edge that could be the real difference maker in there, at least as a pass rusher. I think it's very qualifiable to say that maybe there's some issues there with him stopping the run off the edge, but as a pass rusher, it's undoubted that he's a difference maker out there and what he brings from that. And how you could work off of that. War Chief would love to see where K9's ceiling goes, but if he's not the right running back, I'm okay with that. Sharps is doing just fine, and Woolen hasn't been impressing me much this year at all, to be honest. He's been all right. He's been good coverage. He's been all right. Why you mad, bro? Abdul Carter would be nice to draft the Seahawks. That'd be another one of those guys I was asked above by ALG talking about the guys that'd be available. That'd be another guy in that kind of straight up Penn State. Penn State always has at least one or two of these guys every year. And Abdul Carter's another one of those kind of just real hyper explosive guys off the edge. And could be a guy that falls to you at your spot in that first round. That's a value guy that lands to you. John Naylor, thank you for the $10 donation. John, I appreciate you for that. At the round table, no love for Sam Darnold, 11-2, playing at a high level under McConnell's second quarter. Have we seen the Brock Purdy ceiling? Injury prone, trouble in wet weather, etc. Yeah, I think that Brock Purdy is taken some steps forward this year a little bit, John, and that I think these guys do, and he has improved even off of the sparkling start that he had when he first walked in. He just doesn't have as much of the supporting cast around him quite to the level of what it was when he came in the door. But I think that he has grown a bit as a quarterback. I think his ceiling is also, to your question, limited in that I don't think that there's a lot of upside extra left there in his development or growth to be had, and that he kind of is what he is. Sam Darnold, there's no denying the kind of year that he's having, John. It's not made easy for him there. Patrick McConnell there, or O'Connell, whatever, McConnell, I forget how to say his name, but he's a really good head coach. He really understands how to guide quarterback and high-level quarterback play, but that's also, still a defense that sometimes has to scheme around some of the limitations they're dealing with, and that offensive line has been at times bad this year, and Darnold's been able to play around that. And that's, as I always say, when you have a line that's not necessarily up to snuff and you're able to still perform well as a quarterback around that, that's very much worth lauding. And I've got to admit, even in my eyes at times there with John, with Sam, it just gets built into a little bit of my own pre-built biases with Darnold, and just watching so much of his football and I can't get there with them on it. And maybe I should, maybe I need to alter my outlook on this guy. Certainly could be a guy that potentially is in play for your Seahawks if they're not going to go with Gino moving forward, that they decide that they're going to pivot to a guy like Sam instead, who's younger and same price or same cost you're going to spend on Gino anyway. So why not go younger? I'd be surprised to see him make that move, but it's in play. It's possible. And Darnold's earned that right to earn a contract somewhere where he is the starter and someone has faith in him to do that. Because that's not a team in the Vikings that anybody looked at and said, oh yeah, they'll be at 11-2 at this time of year. And it's not one that's just being carried by its defense. So we don't give them probably enough props on the round table in there. I think we probably all have a little bit of that built in prefabricated outlook on Sam, where it's just on his fourth, fifth team here. Hasn't found that, everyone's kind of toyed with the idea of him, but nobody's really signed up for him. And even the Vikings this year, after the year they're going to have, and I know that JJ McCarthy is sitting waiting in the wings, but you still don't quite necessarily know what you're going to have in McCarthy, much less if he can hold up for a full season for a team that would have come off the back of maybe a 12-5 type year, 13-4. There feels like there's a little bit of a message in that in itself. And maybe not, because they did draft McCarthy before they knew Darnold was going to go crazy town like that. He's a tough one, John. That's what I'm trying to say with him. He's a hard E value for me, and I still don't want him as our quarterback into the future. That would not be the way I'd want us to pivot. But I got to give him props. And what he's been doing is legitimate. David Jefferson says, is DK still getting most of the attention from opposing off defenses, or will JSN become the priority now? Oh no, DK Metcalf is the priority every single week on the All-22. David, if you look at the touchdown catch the JSN had in this past game on the corner route, that's set up by the coverage that's drawing right to DK on that play, opening it up over the top. It's Cardinals playing and play out drifted the coverage towards DK's direction. There's a safety gliding that way. It's opening a lot of this stuff up for JSN, DK's presence. It really is. And giving him a lot of those one-on-one opportunities. Their presence work very well off of each other. We'll see if teams start to pull a little bit more into JSN's area of that, David, and if that starts to become a transition because he is being so hyper-productive. But that's going to be the push and pull game of this at the head of this as well, being that, okay, you can't have it both ways. You're not going to be able to double DK and double JSN. It's very hard to double slots anyways. This is why your Jeffersons and Cooper Kupps and Amon St. Browns can sometimes just continue to keep going off over the course of the game. Is it's not the same as double teaming an outside X receiver with the safety bracket coverage. So, what's your answer going to be? Are you going to draw down a safety down into the box, and now that safety will work off the slot corner, and you'll try to bracket the slot inside? Okay, well, now you're leaving a single high safety, and now you got Tyler and DK on the outside, and they can burn their guys one-on-one with no safety help over the top. So I don't think there's easy answers to be had there, and I will say that in watching the 22 on a weekly basis, teams are not pulling off of DK when he's on the football field. He is still gathering up all of the typical attention that you see him taking with those double teams, with the bracket coverages. Arturo, Hawks Nest, thank you for all you do for the Hawk fans, keeping us informed about our Seahawks. You're lucky that your job is talking about football. And I am very lucky and very blessed to do what I do, Arturo. There's a lot of hard jobs out there. I've worked many of them. And what I get to do is so much easier than the alternative. And I love doing it on top of it. But thank you, man. John Naylor, thank you for the $2 donation. Sam is getting the Gino baggage. He is. I've got to admit to my own outlook on this a bit, John, and being a bit probably unfair to Sam with this a little bit. I will. I still can't quite get there with him. So, maybe check in with me 2 weeks from now, John. They come into our house and beat us in our house. Maybe that'll be the sell point for me to bring me over to the other side at that point. It's just easy. And you know how this is with me, John. I think you've been around long enough to have this with me on it. I am very prejudicial towards quarterbacks, and I have the guys that I'll like, and the guys that I don't like, and it gets very hard for me to twist from one to the other on guys once I get an opinion kind of blazoned in. And but you're right, it is sort of like the Gino baggage, where it has nothing to do with the time of the day in the here and now, and what he's doing in the here and now, and building in a little bit of that understanding of him starting to have about that Gino amount of time period to work his way through this league and to go through some very bright coaches that could bring him along to believe he's taken those steps forward in his game. It's very much a very true possibility here with him. Orchie says, I love DK's role as of late. He's been playing out of the slot position. He's been blocking a lot and taking double teams and truly allowing JSN to do his thing. I dig it. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. It's working in very well. And that's with him, I think, dealing with a little bit of an injury thing. D. Hoxley would love for LeMay to be him, but it's still early. Crossing the fingers for this weekend. Amen. Peter says, I say we draft a pure value and potential. I say we draft pure value and potential, and for the most part, disregard positional needs. Try to mend holes like left guard in free agency. That would make it a lot easier to do that, Peter. If you can go out there and find that left guard in free agency that you feel legitimate by, then you're not driven to pick to that need. And that's, to your point, what sets the stage to be able to draft for value is taking care of this stuff in free agency. I just want to see a guy out there that's not a Laken Tomlinson type. I don't want a guy at 34 years old who's got one little season to rot out from his old bones. Let's at least get a legitimate talent out there. We don't have to spend everything for him, but find something with a legitimate kind of upside to it. One sec here, folks. Allergies again today. Thomas says Jesse's reaction to Lamea tells me he's legit. Yeah, he liked Lamea. Ethan says, Brando, any mid-round wide receivers that stand out? Also hearing that this edge class is somewhat deep. Wouldn't be surprised if we get another one. Can never have enough. Yeah, I think, man, some of these days I have my nose. I'll tell you what, I'm in a fight with my nose, I feel like, all day sometimes. I haven't watched the wide receivers, Ethan. I'm getting a ton of questions on the draft stuff, and I promise you, man, I'm trying to bust my butt to look through the tape. It's just, it takes me a long time, and this season is just, there's so many shows to do, you know? There's so many, and there's so little time where, unless I just want to just completely do nothing but head off the pillow and do football stuff 24/7, I can't get to it all. So when it comes to like the draft stuff a little bit on this, especially in the year where we're having a year like this, where we are good, where we are the top of the division, I'm completely going to understand that there's going to be more of the questions for this. But folks, if you're looking at me having an idea of a 3rd, 4th round, 5th round guys are getting that deep when we're, December 11th and we're 4 months out of the draft, I don't have any of those guys, and I probably won't really anytime soon, just to kind of let you guys know on this, because it's just, there's not enough time. It's when I was doing 2 shows a week, I could spend all the hours in the day kind of scouting guys out, but we're running right now like 9 shows a week here when you put it all together. And that's not even with the uploads we're doing for the channel. So I'm running into right now, there's just not enough time to scout guys out in addition to it. If I scout an additional guy out, Ethan, I've got to scout a guy out for, 10, I got to go in at least and try to do 4 or 5 of his games. It's like, well, do you have that 3 hours there? And it's like, I don't really have that. I'm trying. I'm definitely trying, but there's a big push, and I know you guys are tossing names at me right now, but I just don't, and I'm trying to kind of preemptively say this to you guys in advance. I just don't have the time right now to do the deep dive in through stuff. I'm in that overloads point of the schedule right now. Like tonight, we're going to wrap this up tonight kind of early so I can just go and try to bust through an Ernest Jones video that I probably won't have done till like 2 or 3 in the morning if I can get it done tonight, which probably is going to take me still another day. So I got to get onto more of those things than it's kind of that balance game of, do you spend 10 hours scouting 3 prospects, 2 mid-wide receiver prospects, and this safety prospect going in the top of the 2nd round, or you do put the 5 hours into the video, you got to go, okay, I got to do the video edit work. So If you guys can forgive me on this one, I know that this is a big time push in the channel where there's a lot of love for the prospects. And even at this time of year where we're in the thick of things, there's a big push from my people in the chat to be looking at prospects, and let's get in the prospects and let's look at the draft. And that's a really interesting part of the year for a lot of people. And I do get that, but I'm going to be a little bit slower on that this year. I'm not having the time to do it. And it's like right now yeah. So I'm just going to kind of put a blanket question. I'm going to kind of put a blanket response down on that one, as I know I'm going to get some more questions on this through even the course of this stream on it. Of you guys will have to just give me some time on the prospects. We're going to let's get through the season. Let's with Brandon. Let's understand. I just don't have that time to pop in through them. So I know it'll be a question to push through, and yeah. Up. ALG, we need more offensive line talent, even if guys are playing okay now. Behind them, it's all cheeks. Maybe Haynes do well next season, but he has to replace Tomlinson anyways. Yeah, and I'm not certain that Haynes is going to be able to play left guard, ALG. As somebody else said above, if Haynes can't crack it at right guard, which is an easier position of the guard positions, he's not going to be able to crack it at left guard. And we'll see if right guard's one that's even, feasible at this point. He's not giving you enough in his level of play this year to make you believe he's the answer there. And the reason I kind of press in this way is that I think it is one that you have to look at the situation and say, we've got to address this. We've got to make this an upgrade. That's why I say you can't go down the Lake and Tomlinson route again on this one. You can't say, well, we'll just hope on a wish and a prayer that Christian Haynes can slide over to left guard. I think you got to go find some true value there, whether it's in the draft or it's in free agency, and let Haynes be whatever he's going to be. You don't count on it. You say, well, it would have been great if he could have given us a little bit more. You're not necessarily bailing on him, but that's where I think the team's got to operate from, because they're trying to correct this and fix this, especially not just to fix what's not working on the line, but to also correct a little bit of their pattern of behavior towards the position in prior years. Colby B, thoughts on the Heisman contention? In my opinion, that this should be pretty much a unanimous type of a season given to Ashton Jeanty. He's having one of the true great seasons for a college running back in recent history here, or even all of history of college football. And he's done it at Boise State. And I understand with their competition, and people want to knock him on that level of competition, but I don't know that the guy they would go to instead, being Hunter, has necessarily played, he's played a little bit better competition, I guess, but I think Jeanty's been just so impressive, and that you can see what a special runner he is. Somebody said Marshall Faulk above, and I think that's a fine kind of comparison to make as far as that impact of that guy when, he was out there at San Diego State and how he looked, and just similar in the way that that's San Diego State. So it's a smaller college, and yeah, but this guy's different. Small college, big college, this guy's different. And I got to give him that nod. I think from start to finish, he's been the clear front runner here. Peter says, if we beat the Rams and we both finish 10-7, do the Rams take the division, or is that still up in the air? It all depends, Peter, on a couple of different factors. Number one, do the Cardinals finish 10-7 as well? Because there's a scenario where you can have all three teams finish 10-7, and all three of the teams have 2 wins against one of those teams that's 10-7. And so then it ends up going down to the division record, and the Seahawks would be eliminated in that scenario. If we beat the Rams and we both finish 10-7, again, yes, you're in a scenario there where it's maybe not looking too good for your Seattle Seahawks. The reason why at that point has to come down to division record, and I will show you what I mean by that. So the Seattle Seahawks with their division record, if they finished up at 10-7, the Rams finished up at 10-7. You can see Seattle right now is at 3 wins in the division. If they beat the Rams and they were at 10-7, the Rams were at 10-7, well, then it doesn't matter, right? At that point, because then that means you're in. You have the tiebreaker. But if to get to 10-7, it's that the Rams beat you in the last game of the year to get to 10-7, and then you're at 10-7. Then that means that you're not going to get another game won within your division, meaning that your division record of 3 wins right now, that's as high as you're going to go. And that's the next thing. After you go from head-to-head record, the next thing to determine who wins the division will be the division record. And so with the Rams, they've got 3 divisional games left. They're 2-1. So they're already on your heels, already 1 game out of your 3 wins, which you wouldn't be getting another win from. with 3 games to play, and to get to 10-7 anyway, they're probably going to get 2 more wins within the division to make that happen if they can get to that spot. So if they're at 10 wins, they've gotten 2 wins in addition to this division. What does that mean? That means that they're then at 4 wins in the division. You're at 3 wins within the division. They get the division. And so the Rams are a little bit, even though we're at the front of this, we're a game ahead of them. They've got some advantages on us in this scenario, which are not too cool. Orchie says, I don't understand how Green Bay is favored to win. They literally have the worst deep and mid-range pass game in the whole league. Our safeties are going to have a field day picking those. Watch. I'd love to see it, War Chief. And I can only say that Vegas is leaning on the record. And, with us, we're plus 19 point differential at 8-5. The Packers are 9-4 with a plus 75 point differential. I think Vegas just likes their peripheral numbers here. And, Vegas doesn't tend to get it wrong. But they've gotten it wrong a few times with us, War Chief, throughout this year. So I think that there's an argument to be made with Vegas that maybe when it comes to the Seattle Seahawks team, that they're not seeing us particularly clearly. They had us at 7.5 wins for the year. I mean, even last week, they had by the game time, I believe that the Cardinals were favored by 3.5 points. So almost a touchdown favorite over the top of us going into that game. May just be that they're a little bit weird in some of their outlook on that. Thomas says, let's look at McConnell's reaction to Darnold when McCaffrey comes back. Thomas, I believe he's on a 1-year contract. So Darnold will be a free agent this offseason. Warchie says, did you all see Megan drop that $200 donation on the roundtable yesterday? Yo, that was gangster, Megan. Ha ha ha. That's what's up. Just want to say that. That was gangster by Megan. That was awesome. Thomas says, it gets me frustrated because Rob Stanton is on the pro fire grub philosophy. He wants Pete's to take over. It's driving me nuts because it's a Sean McVay disciple who isn't McVay. Yeah, I don't know if I want to go back down that road again. We just did this with Waldron, and he's not alone. There's some folks that aren't happy with Grubb and what's been brought out of it. I'm not in the same camp though. Myself, I'm where you're probably at with it, Thomas. We do got money, Herbicide. We do got money. I've gone through definitely a bunch on this with the show. We're perfectly okay with cap space right now. We can do whatever we want to go do. I promise. Nick, our best bet is going to run it back with Gino, build a better O-line around him so he doesn't feel the need to carry so much. I don't think we need to look at tight end and wide receiver in the draft as well. Yeah, I think that's fair, Nick. Very fair. Evans is going to my first Seahawks game this week for my birthday. And suggestions on what tickets to get or where to sit? Very excited. Well, I definitely think the lower level, if you can get it down there, Evan. I think anywhere on the lower level, the seats are really good. When you get up into the 300 level, you can still see, but you're probably should bring some binoculars. But lower level would be where I would say, probably. Middle of the midfield street. You can get around that area. But congratulations, Evan. That's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, non-burnout Brando's the best Brando. And if I'm cutting through too much stuff on this, I got to have my moments of a break. I got to have my moments to breathe. I was watching a movie last night feeling guilty, and I was like, oh my God, I'm feeling guilty for watching a movie here. Jones is the number one priority. Yeah, we got to get Jones back. Thomas is all I can say about the addicted. Alpha is bad at balloons. Hey, B, I had a question about Edge Malcolm Kuntz of the Raiders on the post-game show. Was wondering, did you get around to him? If you did, what'd you think? I think he'd be great for us. I haven't had a chance to take a look at it yet. I'm sorry on that, my man. Yeah, I've got a backlog of requests right now. I've got probably about 25 prospects deep and about 7 different free agents people want me to take a look at it, and I'm trying as I can to get into grind on the tape. I really am, but I'm definitely getting into that spot alpha right now where I need about 34 hours in the day and I got 24. And I'm hitting that tap point where I just can't break through and create any more efficiency in the day to make anything happen. Like, I've cut out workouts. I'm trying, man. I am, but there's just an endless amount of guys that look at it and scout, and I will try. I promise you, I will try to get to them. But right now, I'm finding myself pretty much every day with like feeling like I'm blinking once and the day is gone, and it's been like, whoa, where happened the day? But I'll try. I will try. As you can kind of hear on a couple of requests, I'm getting even above on the chat in this one, Alpha. There's a lot of individual requests on individual players, and it's going to take me probably a bit of time to get through kind of all of these on this. Brian E. Hey, Brandon, let's leave the draft for the draft. We've got a season to play, and that Super Bowl the priority, quite honestly. Yeah, that's kind of it here with it, folks, on the draft stuff. I just want to echo Brian's thing on this, or free agency with this. I understand that there's the pull on this right now heavily to start getting into this and dive into it. When the draft, with the NFL draft, it's a unique place where it's something that there's nothing like it. It's almost a second Super Bowl for a lot of fans. In fact, I've heard from a lot of fans who've told me that they almost love the draft more than they like the Super Bowl as a given thing. So there's going to be a big push on this. But for the folks that are in on this, it's really... You can't kind of serve two masters on this. I can kind of serve the master of this season and work on stuff that's really more keeping the concentration here, or I can kind of guide in that. I can't do the lizard eyes, split the eyes, going two ways. So that's where I want to make that point of mention here today in the show on this, that we kind of like, let's maybe tap the brakes a bit on like the deep draft dive. Here's 7, 9, 10, 15 players for you to look like. We're still in the season. We're first place right now. Like, there's a time and a place to be looking at the offseason and be like really doing that depth work into it. And then there's the time of the season right now where we're still right in the run of this. And I'd much more rather be concentrating on this current team right now, what this team can do, where this team's going, what the matchups are for this team coming up for the next couple of weeks, than be looking at a prospect with a draft that's 4 months out. I mean, it's still just so far out on this stuff. And I'm 50 plus players already into the draft ready here, but I'm not going to be at, December 20th, 250 players I've scouted on the draft. That's just unrealistic to get to that spot of things. I don't know. Maybe I'm just behind this year versus where I should be, but definitely a lot. Thomas Brando, would you consider a trade back in the draft or stick and pick based off of the mock draft? I'm seeing there's a lot of mid-round picks, but that's giving up on Starks, Walker, Mill, Rowe. I think it does depend very much on individually the type of player that's sitting there available for us. If we're going to trade back, who's going to be available when we do trade back? For instance, Thomas, we've had trades in the past that we've made where we've moved back and there was a very high quality player there for us to pick, but then we moved back in the draft and we ended up losing out on that high quality player to take something that was much lesser. DLJ Collier draft, for instance. So if you're talking about making that type of move for the sake of doing that, no. If it was to do it, for instance, Thomas, like let's say this scenario where you're picking 20 and then you move back to, let's say, 32, but then you take Booker, the best guard in the draft maybe, and how that would suit. And then you pick up the extra pick and doing it in that way. Well, I could certainly then sign off on it being that kind of move that you make to do it from that standpoint. Whereas with LJ, if I'm not mistaken on LJ, you started out on that process in that draft of moving back off of Montez Sweat, who you could have gotten earlier, and you got cute with it on that draft to pick up the extra picks, losing out on Montez Sweat to go draft for the same position in an LJ Collier. Whereas what I'd advocate for is you move back and then you essentially go take the best player of that position while still then moving back those picks. So it's very much pertinent to what we're talking about, Thomas, on what's exactly the details of who we're moving back from, who's looking at us right there, who are you looking to move back to pick towards? Because if you are moving back, you do have a guy in mind, or you're side-eyeing somebody that you think is going to be available there when you do go backwards like that. And I think that's where it's got to be that specific scenario, because it could just as well be, Thomas, the bad scenario on it where you're, like you say, you've got an opportunity to maybe take a Starks, or maybe it's an Abdul Carter as an edge, and then you drop back and the edge class goes off a cliff, and you end up reaching for something there that's not the same sort of level of talent. Specifics on that one's got to be the biggest part of the puzzle on that one a little bit. Peter says, even with all the investment we've made in defensive tackle, I'd be okay drafting another one if it was BPA. True nose tackle or fourth edge rusher would be better, but Reed's getting old. Well, and Jaron Reed's also a free agent, so you don't know if you're going to be bringing him back in. Draymond Jones, Uchenna Nwosu might be both gone after this year, so you may need to go get an edge just to get some depth in there. And I certainly do think that nose tackle is going to be one of those priority places that they probably do address in the draft, unless there is a guy in free agency that becomes available, and I'm not so sure that there will be. Nick says, give me Revel, round 1. No more hiding from Spoon and Woolen. Tore his ACL this year, Nick. So that's the one thing with him. If you take him, you're taking the bit of the risk that you're hoping that he can come back off of that pretty major lower leg injury that he did have. He's a good player, though. Probably would have been a blue chip guy if he didn't have his leg torn up. Big Boy Jess, Hawks Nest. How is it that Paris Johnson gets a 70 grade on PFF when he had over 2 holding penalties, and Abe Lucas gets a below 50 grade when he got a false start penalty? PFF seems to hate our O-line. They've been grading him a little bit weird. Yeah, Lucas came back in that first game against the Niners, and he was excellently graded. I don't think he's played far off of that performance, and yet they've had him far off of that performance by how they've graded him out. And I don't really get it a lot myself either, big boy. Doesn't match to the eye test. And that's why we always say with PFF on this one that it is a tool to utilize. It's something to put into the bag of the discernment of a player or a team and what's going on, but it should never be always used as an end-all be-all if you can help it. That the eye test should be the thing that ends up wearing out. Definitely have that to pair with the eye test, but then let the eye test, and what you're seeing from your actual eyes, what they're telling you, be the thing that bears out more than anything else. And that's because of situations like this where there can be some discrepancy in the grades and that they don't always quite add up. Daniel W. says, who does the round table money go to? The money sent in the chat, how is it divvied up? So it's a separate channel. It's not something that goes to me per se or to the other creators on there per se. It goes back to the round table folks, but they're doing a lot to set this up on their side of it. So I'm not mad at that. And, they accommodate us for the appearance. So, and I'm sure long-term, it's going to be something that is very lucrative for everybody involved as it grows and gets bigger too. That's also a part of it. Lou Hawks Nest. We all know that Pumpkin is the star of the show. She moved to the other cat tree. She picked the Packers this week. Tell me Pumpkin is not going to the dark side. Nah, she just bounces back and forth. It's the way of the cats. They play both sides. It's just their nature. Bryony, just avoid the Hawks Nest if you can. That was the worst seats I've had among the games I attended. Ooh, all right. Well, stay out of the Hawks Nest seats in the stadium. Not the Hawks Nest YouTube channel, but the Hawks Nest seats in the stadium. Sanchez, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, if you're running out of off time, hire an assistant. I'm going to have to probably get to that spot of it, Sanchez, where I'm going to probably have to start to look at somebody I can bring onto the channel to do some of the work with this stuff. The only problem with that is that there's not quite enough the channel makes as a whole to be able to quite get to the ability to do that. So, but it's where this will probably be as the next step to be able to expand this and get some more stuff done. Because, it's the encompassing of everything where you're just like, holy mackerel. Another thumbnail. Title, tag, description, title, tag, description, title, tag, description. Get the prep. I love it, man. But it's a lot. Spencer Brando, you do not understand the depths of my desire to see Luther Burden in this offense. If he goes too high for us, I am more of Stanford has Ayuk 2 vibes would be great as well. Sounds good to me, man. Burden was fine on first view, but I'm kind of just as I said on above on that one, Spencer, and I'm sorry for this, man. I really apologize, folks. I know in prior years, I've been able to do a lot more draft coverage stuff, in season and going on it. It's just this year it's literally 9 shows I'm doing every single week. So we do 9 shows a week. That's without any uploads and any of the stuff I'm doing on my Clips channel. And I just am not having the time to go through all these guys. So we'll have to. I know there's going to be more and more questions coming. Just letting everyone know in advance on this with the prospects right now. We're going to have to just put a little bit of that from that full drive and hitting that NOS button and turning on the rockets on the top. And let's get into all these prospects right now. I'm going to need a little bit of time from you guys if you can. I'm really sorry about that. Typical years, I'd be able to give you more on this. I'm going to need a little bit more time on these ones. I just can't do this deep of a dive right now. So I'll try. And again, you guys can say, you can even sense, as I've mentioned this even in the chat, you guys have seen bomb. There'll be more bomb. I get it. I do get it. And I will try to catch up as fast as I humanly possibly can, because I know that you guys love this so much and you want to talk about these guys already and be able to get in the depths of these already. But we're still in the season, man. We got 4 weeks left the game, weeks left to play to go. I've got 2 shows left tomorrow in the day, and we got 3 shows for tomorrow scheduled. So all things in good time. All things in good time. Spencer says, also good luck in fantasy this week, my fellow Hawks Nesters at the Hawks Nest. That's right. Got past the first round. Unfortunately, I had to take down Megan last week in fantasy in the playoffs. I don't feel good about that. I don't feel good at all about that. But on to round 2, man. Thank you. Best of luck to you too as well. Nick says, I want a real burner in the third. Wide receiver. We have DK as the X, JS in the slot. I want a real field stretcher that isn't DK. Teams aren't scared of anybody else beating them deep. I wouldn't mind that either. It'd be nice to have. Nick says, Brando, who are some of your favorite prospects so far that you've looked up of the draft? We're going to get into draft coverage tonight one way or another, aren't we, folks? There ain't no avoiding it, is there? All right. I'm just going to start scouting tonight with you guys on the live stream. And we're going to go this heavy with it. I'm just going to start popping on, being like, all right, let's go one by one. We won't do any talk on the chat. I'll do my scouting during the live stream right now if we're going to push on this. I like Mason Graham quite a bit. Travis Hunter, Will Johnson are your 3 guys that I would have as far as blue chip prospects and grades on. Malachi Starks is very dynamic from the free safety position, and he could play a lot of different positions. I think that him, Jada Barron, and Xavier Watts, kid out of Notre Dame, another safety, really interesting prospects, really hyper athletic, can do a lot of different things for you on the football field, and guys that I think would be very appealing to Mike McDonald in order to add him to this defense. So defensively, those would be the guys that I would look at there. I like Dante Corleone. I'm not as an early round guy, just like him as a nose tackle guy to keep an eye on in this draft potentially. Guy that I liked his tape quite a bit. Booker, Tyler Booker there out of Alabama, left guard. A lot of fun. Think he's going to be a really good player. Kind of all the interior linemen I've looked at. Emory Jones, Kelvin Banks, Texas kid that'll probably bounce to guard at the next level. Luke Condra, center, guard kind of guy out of Cincinnati maybe. All those guys I like quite a bit. Even guys that I'd have a little bit later into 4th round, Tate Ratledge, Donovan Jackson, Wyatt Milliam. All those guys I think are going to be guards at the next level, and they could all be interesting as far as guys that would be on my radar that I like. And I'm going to be very lineman heavy, of course, because I want to see the Seahawks, deal with that. Offensively wise, though, so far the best players offensively have been Ashton Genty, Tatoria McMillan, the kid out of Arizona. I think he's Mike Evans 2.0. Those are my 2 guys. I don't think I quite have a blue chip grade on McMillan, but some of that'll depend on how fast he runs. Because if he goes out there and runs a 4.7, I'm going to be a little bit like, eh. But if he can pull like a 4.5 at his size, he might be another guy I put a blue chip grade on. But Genty's the truth. He's absolutely the truth. Don't love a lot of the skill position talent, quarterback talent. Mekabuka, Luther Burden, just passing. I've taken a quick look at those guys, but nothing stood out to me. But again, too, still very early, and probably 15 to list Guzman or quarterbacks so far that I've taken a look at. Even more Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. How does it feel Roundtable calling us cockroaches felt? They feel like they're being respectful in saying it, and how they look at it, I guess. And whatever, they can call us whatever they want to call us. I'm going to call us divisional champs. So they want to call it cockroach and be like, yeah, how's the view from second place? How's the view from last place? So, yeah, I mean, it all boils down to they all thought we were going to be trash this year, and we weren't trash. And so now we're good. So instead of being trash, we're just the bugs that eat on top of the trash. I haven't gotten a lot of deep outlooks towards our team this year from the interior of the round table. I haven't sensed a lot of curiosity about our team, nor really better understanding our team all that much. Those guys at times are caught up in their own lane. There's guys in there that I know don't even watch our games. And so I take the opinions at that point with a real bit of a smidgen of salt, If I don't think you've done the homework or looked at all the stuff, and you're going to come like, all right, well, I know you haven't done your due diligence on it. And that was his evidence by walking in the door there and the Gino Smith discussion and where that was at when I first walked in there. Griff, thank you for the $5 donation, Trey. He says, yo, B, that was a good enough game for Grubb's hot seat to cool off a little. I would hope so, Trey. But there's certainly still, even this week, plenty of people that are in that lane of it and feel like Grubb is over his head and that we can do better, that there's a better candidate out there. It's certainly something that's very hot to trot out there in the discussions of the Seahawks fandom right now. I think that there is a little bit of a rush and a pull, in my opinion, right now. Trey is a given thing that I'm seeing in the fandom, not just in the Hawk fandom, but I think that this is existing right now. Maybe it's in sports in general, but certainly it's definitely in the NFL right now. And I think that people are at times operating with this sort of Dr. Evil control panel buttons in front of them that they can push and send people down to a fiery inferno death, fire him. And everybody wants to get the panel out. And nobody wants to really exhibit any kind of patience or let anything really set. There's a very much a rush. And the rush seems to be always a drive. I mean, look at the Niner fan base. They just got to a Super Bowl last year, and yet there's a huge contingent of that fan base that wants Shanahan gone. To me, that just speaks to a little bit of this is exactly what I sense a little bit in the fandom here at times of that pull and rush to, is this guy the right guy? Is that guy the wrong guy? Is this we got to get this guy out. Whereas why not let this thing play out and see where it goes? I don't want to do that. I want to rush to a conclusion. Well, why there's no reason to do that, but that's also a bit of the nature of the beast in the modern fandom, is that there is, in particular in the last couple of years, been a heavy drive from the fandom to not just our fandom, but in general, I think, on this, to hit these conclusions very quickly, to not allow for there to be any time, and just keep it moving. Keep that conveyor spinning belt. Is he here? Is he right? No. Is this one right? Do we know instantaneously? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? No. Is this one right? Is this one right? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Is this one right? This one right? This one. And there's that push and pull and gets exhausting sometimes, because you're like, boy, first year of a new head coach, just kind of want to see how this goes. And I know there's been some tough moments, but hasn't exactly always had the stack deck working for him on the favor of it. It's cooled it off a little bit, but you can find just as many, I'm sure, videos and stories that have come out this week, Trey, of fans pounding the drum for they can do better, that he's fallen woefully short. And, I guess from some Seahawks fans' perspectives, this was a team that had, a 1,300-yard back season in Kenneth Walker and the 1,500-yard season there. And Gino could have been throwing for, instead of being on pace for 4,600 yards, he could be throwing for 5,000. And that Grubbs caused us to be going up short on that. I don't agree with it, and I'm still definitely going to let this all season play out to see where I finally kind of sit on Grubb, but I don't know on that one, Trey. Maybe a little bit, it should, but I don't think that's the sense I've gotten on it, unfortunately. And he did some great adjustments, as I was saying and showing through the videos at the top on it, where you look at what he did in the gap scheme and some of that stuff, and how he ran more gap in this game than you had run all season long collectively in all of your games. That's a pertinent adjustment you made. That's something you did specifically as an offensive play caller. And the fact that you've been able to keep Gino cleaner and cleaner as the weeks have gone along, that speaks to adjustment as well. Doesn't mean it's perfect. Doesn't mean there aren't plenty of things there for him to still correct and get better. But let's give him the room for growth on that. Let's see if that growth comes. Nick says, I think the Seahawks could draft another great player like Jackson Smith, the 20th pick. I'm hyped to see this upcoming draft. Me too. Thomas, Brian, he says, Hawks Nest. Yeah, sorry, I should have been more clear. I meant the seats in the Hawks Nest at Lumen. We ain't avoiding the Hawks Nest, the channel. Absolutely not. Let's go, Brian. Let's go. Sanchez says, Stefanski or bust as far as the next OC. Oh, Dwyer, no need to apologize about being behind on the draft work. You've been working hard all year putting out shows. I do feel bad because I get asked these questions and I typically like to be prepared with an answer, on this stuff. And I swear as I get the time and as I get the bandwidth to get it done, I will do my best to drive through these prospects, folks. I promise you on that. I know that it's something that the fan base wants and that this is going to be between now and the draft, this is going to be at a forefront point of a discussion, whether we're in the playoff hunt or whether we're out of it. And I get that. I understand it's the nature of the beast by the sport, but I'm going to be just a bit behind. And I've already kind of sensed the past couple of shows because I'm getting pressed a lot on it that I'm like, I'm way behind. So I just got to own it a little bit on that side. Definitely I'm in that pocket, and that's my bad on it, but we'll get it turned. Spencer said, I wrote that before you wanted to keep it in-season focused. My bad. No, you're good, Spencer. It's all good. Like I said, this isn't a bad thing from the chat to ask for it. I don't want to make this seem like I'm trying to shade chat on this. I'm getting inundated the past couple of shows with a heavy amount of draft coverage questions, and it seems like that fire has kind of lit under people, and that suddenly has become in the moment, and it sort of overwhelmed me a bit here of this has become a huge point of the discussion point. So I'm going to try to catch up to where you guys are at on it. I'm more into like the season and, hey, this team's got a potential to make noise right now. And it's hard for me to make that change as much as I love the draft, and I'm going to get into it. I'll have scouted 350 guys by the time that we're done with this process. And I'll have looked at each of those guys a good, probably 5, 6, 7 hours of good film at least on them. But, yeah, that's why I want to mention it tangibly. It's not that you definitely bring it up, guys. There's no topics that are off limits here. It's just, I feel bad as I'm getting asked about these players that I don't know much about. Saturdays for me are prep. Like I can't watch college football on Saturdays. That's prep work for the next week. So it's putting the thumbnails together. It's making sure that you got the behind enemy lines guys. These guys are evasive as hell. So it takes like 15 emails for the behind enemy lines guys just to pin them down to a given time. Let's get the roundup table, start to prep that, get the video. It's just, the time runs out, man. It just goes. Patrick, maybe been watching you for a minute. Maybe it's just me, but I've never seen you wear jewelry during live games. Is there a reason? Go Hawks. Is there? But I don't like jewelry. I don't like flash. It's just a personal opinion for me, but I think that I think jewelry on men looks silly. But I'm very much old school in this way. So like I'm an old head. I have an outlook that's very aged on this one. I just think I think men and dudes look, so you got a pinky ring, you got a thing around your, like, I think it looks silly to me. And maybe it like gets you action or, makes you real popular with the ladies. One might ask, like, if that's what makes you popular with the ladies, what kind of ladies are you trying to attract? But I don't like any of that stuff. You'll never see me with a ring. You'll never see me with a bracelet. You'll never see me with anything. But I'm a weirdo this way too. Cause I'm also the kind of guy like who never puts stuff up on my walls outside of like what you see behind me. Like I ain't a guy like a lot of pictures on my walls, a lot of just extra stuff. But I don't know. Jewelry seems like stuff for ladies more than for men. I don't know, but I'm old school. Ethan said, Brandon, you know who you're facing this week, right? In round 2. I got you this week, huh? Let's go, Ethan. I'm ready. I need my receivers to step up. They've been letting me down. My trio, my magical trio has not been so magical this year, but they brought it home last week. I was able to overcome Megan with her Sam Darnold quarterback. Holy mackerel. Thomas says, did you hear the Mariners getting the 3rd overall pick in the Major League draft? We'll see if they blow it. Well, I mean, given history, they tend to select pretty good when they're at the top of the draft, though they do better with the number 1 overall pick than they do with sort of that top 3, right? Didn't you have you've had a Dustin Ackley, you've had a Mike Zunino in that sort of top area. And when you've got the number 1 overall, you've had A-Rod, you've had Griffey, and you've really gotten good players when you've been number 1. But it's kind of their only hope. If the Mariners are going to get the World Series, they're not going to get there by the traditional way of any other team in the Major League Baseball that is getting to the World Series. They're going to have to do it by supercharging up their farm system and just having so many great players coming through that they're able to overwhelm things through that way. All Harborside says, sorry, I'm back. Had some issues. Yeah, Fisk was saying he hates the 12s. He says we chirp too much. He was on some podcast when he said it. Oh, my goodness. Wow. The rivalry's hot already there, I guess. Let's go. Somebody probably called him baby arms when he came in the stadium last time. Would be my guess. Addicted Brandon, would it be terrible if Grubb went to Montgomery Gibbs 2.0 concept with Sharps and K9 once K9 is healthy? From a balance standpoint, you can certainly balance off the carries and touches between the two of them, and maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing to do, Addicted. But you're not going to be able to use the backs in the same way that the Lions use use those two backs. Those two guys have two very different skill sets. K9 and Charbonnet have two different skill sets, but they're not as wildly different as Montgomery to Gibbs. You know, Montgomery's a tank inside. He's a guy that's going to live in the A and the B gap, and he's just going to grind in there. That's not really Charbonnet. So you're really calling kind of similar plays for each of them. But as far as the balance goes between your usage of them, yeah, you could definitely balance that off a little bit more on that. Nick says, Charbonnet really got me into the playoffs this past week. I couldn't believe he was on the waivers. Oh, wow. That was a hell of a pickup for you. At Alpha's Bad Blooms. If our offensive line continues the way they just played last week, this team has serious potential to make a run. Gino could have gone 28 of 30 if he didn't have those drops. That's elite quarterback play. Amen. And I agree. If this offensive line can solidify, as I've said all year, down to sort of a middle-of-the-road state in your bottom line of output of play, then you can be very dangerous as an offense. And you combine that up with a defense that's locking into shape and then a special teams unit that holds up on their side of it. And that's the type of team that absolutely can make noise in the playoffs. Doesn't have to be dominant as a group in that offensive line play. It's just got to be into that average place, into not just a leaky ship, which is where they've been the past few weeks and how they played. So, yeah, I agree, man. There's a lot of potential. This team getting to its best strength by the end of the year, getting to its healthiest by the end of the year, having both sides of the ball operating at their most efficient, at their best. And, you know, you're going to go up against teams that are more established, that have had more playoff success potentially at that point. But I think you can go toe-to-toe with anyone then, in my opinion. Sanchez says, B, I don't agree with your assessment of Grubb. I had 12 games to see what he has done, which isn't much. It's not getting better, and a good OC would have made the adjustments earlier. Gap runs are not groundbreaking stuff. It's fair enough. I know we see an outlook of it, a little bit different of it. But, you know, we've been around on that one before on this one, Sanchez, so I'm not going to go around the track again on this one. It's as I've said before on it, you can reach your assessment and you can reach your point of finality right now and say, there will be no improvement upon him on that. And maybe there won't. There has been improvement over the past couple of weeks. You have found more in the running game, whether those adjustments should have been made earlier or whether he's making the adjustments. And if it comes through and you do finish off the season with the gap run stuff at your back and working in your favor, I think that's notable. As well, as I've come back and spoken to you on this, there's nothing Grubb could have done about that offensive line. And I don't know what offensive coordinator you bring in who overcomes what this offensive line did and what he inherited to start this season out. Stone Forsythe starting the majority of the games. Laken Tomlinson, Bradford, Haynes not ready to go. Connor Williams coming in at the late hour off the knee surgery. You know, he was set up in a lot of ways here, if not to fail, not necessarily to succeed at a certain high level. But like I was saying earlier to an above donation on this to Trey Griff, who was asking about this during direct point, I understand that there's going to be a part of the fan base that has this outlook on it. I just have my outlook on it too. And I don't think that there's really, as I've said at the bottom line on this, there's nothing to be gained by coming and reaching to this conclusion in week 12. There's not a OC you go trade for. You're not going to fire this guy right now and elevate somebody from in-house who's going to be a better option right now in the moment. There's nothing to be gained by coming to a conclusion of, I know what I've seen enough, and I'm done. In my opinion. Unlike if you're looking at another position with another player, if you're at a Dotson or Baker this season, well, what about Tyrice Knight? Well, maybe what about making a trade? That's different when you come to those conclusions on those guys because you can do something a little bit about it. But nothing can be done about it right now one way or the other. And we will see if there really is going to be truly some of the options that I think would be pie in the sky options that some people present. You mentioned Stefanski. I'm really not all that certain at this point, Sanchez, that Stefanski doesn't get another head coaching opportunity where somebody looks at what he's dealt with there in Cleveland and they say, hey, you're every bit the coach McConnell is out there in Minnesota. You've not been given the quarterback play to make that happen. I don't think that's a leap of logic at all. And so, he gets removed off the market. A guy like Frank Reich, who I know Brendan really loves, doesn't want to come out of retirement to go be an OC after he's been a head coach a couple times, and he's sitting on his retirement. He's happy and fine out there. So who is the OC? Who is that magical guy we know is going to be the significant upgrade over what we have in Grubb and House at that point? And I'm not as certain, even if we get to the point of this thing ending out basically of where it's at, of who is that real dynamic guy out there available that we know is going to be better, that we know is going to be available. That we know is going to be available, not that we think might be available, but we actually know is going to be available. Jordan, thank you for the $2 donation. I appreciate you for that, Jordan. Says Murphy gets 2 sacks and a 4th down stuff. Ooh, I like that, Jordan. I like that. Well, you're down officially on record. So if it happens, you're getting full credit on that one, my man. It'd be cool to see Murphy break out in that way. He's been playing pretty good for us. Really good for us as a run defender, especially. Dig Docs, Brandon, is the 2024 Seahawks starting to feel like the 2012 version, 2.0 maybe? Yeah, a little bit. We thought we were in 2009 season addicted to Hawks, but instead we're actually maybe in the 2012 season. And yeah, I think like that team, you had finished up stronger and stronger and stronger, and you weren't going to go into the playoffs as necessarily the perennial choice to go and make noise in the playoffs. That was Atlanta Falcon team that had a great year that year. The Niner team, of course, was running at the full height of their powers. So you were looked at as a team that was spry, upright, making a little bit of noise, whatever. We'll see what you can do when it comes down to it kind of thing. And you were hot at the right time of year. Yeah, I think that's much more of how this has emerged and how it's looked. Bimmy says, we kept Shane Waldron for 3 years. I think we can handle Grubb. Yeah, probably. Spencer says, here's a in-season question for you to try and precise. What has been more of the keystone in the defensive turnaround? The emergence of Kobe Bryant as the starting free safety or the trade for Ernest Jones? The trade for Ernest Jones has been more impactful. I think the combination of Jones and Tyrice Knight are the two that you really got to point to, because I think in Baker and Dotson, they were both giving you similar levels of liability for the position and what they were unable to do. Whereas the two guys you brought in there have souped up that part of your game defensively from where it was. But Jones took a position that was failing. I don't think that Kobe Bryant necessarily took over for what was a position that was failing. It was a position where Rashawn Jenkins at the time had a cast on his hand and he couldn't even really tackle. So he was taking over from that, but Jenkins has been fine absent that around the other edges of things. Bryant's just been an improvement. He's been a better player by a little bit. But the inside linebacker position was really atrocious in how they were playing this year. Getting off blocks, being instinctive, reading plays. You're in a wholly different land here with Ernest Jones, in my opinion, Spencer. But Kobe's been a part of, when you talk about turning the defensive turnaround as a whole, you can't just say it's in on only those inside linebackers. If you've taken the position at a place of, being at a 65 to, him playing it at like an 80, that certainly has helped you out as well. Brandon Mills, go Hawks. Riverside says, I'm not a bling guy either. Yeah, I never could do it. I never felt right. Even if I had a watch on back in the day, it just never felt right. Kyle says, no problem with Julia and other guys, but I don't like it on me. Yeah, I don't judge anybody on anything else. It just feels awkward for me ever to wear. Arturo, Hawksnest, I'm also an anti-bling guy. I'm old school in this way too, but again, I'm 49% ethically West Asian, so there's those cultural influences from the Eastern Mediterranean coast. I get that too, and I wouldn't judge if a guy wanted to wear jewelry, do your thing, wear it. But it's always been for me, always one where it's So that's the same reason I don't have a tattoo. And I can never like something enough to have it there all for permanent, you know. I'm much more of a blank canvas guy. Probably somebody would say boring. I probably should rock some jewelry. Nick says, Brando, I've come on and talk about draft stuff. You know, there's a real passion from mine. I can talk forever about that stuff. Oh, for sure. And I'm usually there. I've just been a little bit behind the ball this year. I definitely feel I've not been up on as many. I've gotten 50 deep, but I probably should be more like about 150 deep right now. It's tough. It's tough. Brian Meyer says, zero reason to think about changing OC until we see a scheme fail after the staff builds the team they want. Still playing with players from previous regime. Good point. Very good point. Yeah, might want to make sure we can get him a full season of the guys that fit exactly to his scheme. And I think, you know, to your point on that is, you know, finding maybe even like receivers or tight end guys that could be a little more yak based in their ability after the catch than what he's had in house. On top of having, of course, competent linemen across the board, if that's possible. Thomas says, if people think Stefanski or McDonald for an OC is out of their minds, that they are successful head coaches and will be hired somewhere else. And I think Seattle's OC is better than Dable, too. Dable's another name that gets mentioned a bit there, yeah. And, yeah, I think Stefanski will be a coach somewhere if the Browns let him go. I think somebody's going to recognize he's a good coach, and he got handed a real tough deal. We'll see with Dable. I certainly don't think he's going to get a head coaching job anymore, but you know, he'll get hired as an OC somewhere, so that's maybe more feasible as a guy that's in play if somebody wanted to go that route with it. But there's a good push on this. I mean, I got to acknowledge, I don't agree with it, but I'm also not going to say the people that believe this or want to see this are necessarily some fringe group of the Seahawks fandom. There's plenty of folks out there that are in this alignment of it, you know. Trey Griff, Hawks Nest. I know it might be a stretch, but have you started looking at free agency for who you think would be good additions? I've looked a little bit at a couple guards, but not as of yet too deeply on that. Sometimes with the free agency stuff too, it's one where you can look at it a little bit right now, and there's going to be a lot that's going to change on that, because football is one where once you get in the offseason, you're going to get the contract extensions. Now a guy that looks like he's going to be a free agent isn't a free agent. He's just off the market. Or you'll have guys that'll have a restricted tag put on them where they might look like free agents, but the team puts a second round tender on them and now they're off the market. Or you'll get the franchise tag, which will come back into play on some of the guys as well. You know, or the guys, or another one is the guys that are due to be free agents might get traded before that free agent period, you know, and they get a contract extension signed with a team that, you know, so there's a variety of things kind of can go down. So I'm Tevin Jenkins and Trey Smith there at the guard position have been two guys that have stood out to me with that, you know. You're not going to have a lot of holes there, Trey, as far as free agency goes. I mean, I would anticipate Ernest Jones is probably going to be re-signed. I think that the team's probably going to sign Gino Smith and DK Metcalf to a contract extension. I'm pretty sure that Boye Mafe and Charles Cross are going to get contract extensions. I think that you're probably really looking at having only to look at a nose tackle and potential free agency as far as the defense goes, maybe a backup edge rusher. And then, of course, that's why I've looked at guard, thinking guard, center, free agency, but wide receiver-wise, Tyler retires. You might need a number 2 receiver. I'd anticipate the team would still go and draft that, though. So it's a couple things that have held me back a little bit on the free agency side of it, Trey, is that you got to create a lot of cap space, and I'm thinking that cap space is mainly going to go to in-house players. And you may have like room for one major signing out there, like a Tevin Jenkins left guard for the Bears. But you're not going to be able to necessarily go wild and crazy out there, especially if you do re-sign 4 or 5 of it. Like that's 5 re-signings in-house, Trey. That'll be significant money. Ernest Jones, DK Metcalf, Geno Smith, Charles Cross, Boye Mafe. That's a 5 minimum, I think. You have on top of that a Tariq Woolen, a Kenneth Walker that you got to make a decision on as well. So money will get stretched lean if you're going to sign those extensions, and that just means less free agents. But Probably a tiny bit early on that one. Besides, as I do construction and stuff, bling gets in the way when you work with your hands. Hate to lose it too. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't want to lose that. I might be mad. Young Bido Game, thank you for reminding me that. Folks, if you could for me, hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. Helps the channel grow immensely. I really do appreciate it. Slated for, the defense has coined the name Death Zone. How does it sound to you personally? And is it up there with Legion of Boom? Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. I mean, it's all right. It's better than the Cyclone Bomb that people were trying to make a thing a couple weeks ago, I suppose. It's usually like to have a little bit of a phonetic roll to it, you know? The Steel Curtain, the Legion of Boom, the Death Zone. Yeah, it needs a little more punch, I feel like. Sean Edwards, Brandon, sorry if I missed it from earlier, but how does Green Bay's O-line match up against Seattle's D-line? Also, FYI, I appreciate your focus on the current season rather than the upcoming draft. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that, Sean. I want to get, I'm going to be working on tonight, try to get an Ernest Jones video out to you guys, and you guys are going to laugh your butt off when you see the thumbnail for this one, by the way. You'll like the thumbnail in this Ernest Jones video. Just take my word for it. I'm working on that one in the background, but thank you, man. I appreciate that. I do want to win the teams, especially still in the thick of it. Keep the eye on the ball, as they would say. And the Green Bay Packers, what stands out about them with their offensive line is that this is a team that, much like the quarterback position, has a very good plan for when it comes to the offensive line and how to always keep it beefed up, how to always keep injecting talent into it in every single draft, making it a point of emphasis. They are without Jordan Morgan, who was really their keynote offensive line pick from this past draft out of Arizona. He's currently on the IR, but they've got in Rasheed Walker, former kid out of Penn State. They've been able to develop into a pretty decent left tackle. Zach Tom is a very good right tackle for them. So they're good on that edges out there. Elton Jenkins can play all across the offensive line. He's steady Eddie as you get in there. And Josh Myers and Sean Orion are pretty good. As far as against lines that we played this year, and where they rank, in that level of things, it's probably one of the better offensive lines that we've encountered. It's not as good as a Detroit Lions offensive line, I would say. It's not as good as a Philadelphia Eagles kind of offensive line, but is maybe that next tier below that. You put them in that area, and that they can both run. They're creating holes for Jacobs in the run game. They're very good in that. And they're definitely holding up in pass protection for Love in addition. So they're good all the way around. They're going to be hard to deal with. We're not going to be able to just, I think, take them to school on that. That's also where playing at home, having maybe the home field advantage of primetime game on Sunday night, Sean, can maybe give those defenders that extra half step. I go back to the last time the Packers played in Seattle, primetime, Sunday night. And while everybody remembers in that game, Sean, the Hail Mary play, and rightfully so, as it was a major play in that game to finish things up, and a Hail Mary at that to finish things up. What people don't remember in that game, if I'm not mistaken, is I think your Seattle Seahawks had 8 sacks in that first half. 8 sacks in that first half. And the reason was partly because of how loud the noise was. I was in that stadium. I can attest. And that was us at the height of our powers from a volume standpoint. And the Packers were trying to pass through that first half, and our guys were getting too good at jumps off the line of scrimmage. So that can be the great neutralizer to what could be a pretty solid offensive line from the Packers standpoint. They don't have the difference maker guy on there, Sean, that is a, Trent Williams type, one of those guys that's just a real centerpiece point of that line, or like what they had, for instance, with David Bakhtiari. They don't have a talent of a David Bakhtiari out there right now, but they're pretty solid 1 through 5. And there's not anything that I would say was necessarily maybe a major weak link outside of the right guard position with Morgan now on IR. I think that was the guy they would much rather have out there rolling at that guard position. Addicted to Hawks, Brandon, no jewelry, no tattoos. Did you grow up in North Dakota in the 80s too? Teasing. Your comments did make me chuckle. I know, I'm from Western Seattle. Everybody's tattooed out over there. Freaking everybody loves their sleeve tats and their neck tats and their, I don't know. I could just never decide on something I wanted. The permanent angle always kind of tripped me up a little bit. But I don't know why. I don't have a good explanation. Thomas, I believe that Grubb could be Ben Johnson, and Johnson was consistent his first year. He got hot at the end of the season. Ben Johnson was an NFL assistant compared to Grubb, who's a college assistant coach. Good quote. Good points. Good points. I like it. Brandon's excited for the action green. Those that love the action green, love the action green. Sanchez says, start a GoFundMe for a diamond-studded grill. I would rock a diamond-studded grill. That might be the one thing that I would do, so I can always take it out of my mouth really quick. I need the single gold tooth. That's what I need. I always like that look too. The one gold tooth right here on the incisor. Do a lot of side smiling, to show it off. Spencer says the streets are saying Woolen and Spoon are the number one corner duo in the entire NFL. What are your thoughts? I mean, hard pressed to tell me who is a better duo out there and who's balling out. There's teams that have good number one corners, but probably don't have the number two option out there aside that we do with these two guys. The Eagles got a pretty good combination. That rook out there, Cooper DeJean and Quinton Mitchell. Those guys have been balling out there when they've been playing, and they've been pretty good, pretty good. But most everybody else that I think about on this, they've got the one corner thing. They might have that one solid guy, but they don't necessarily have the number two guy that's going to do a whole lot or makes you feel all that worried. So I like the streets are right, but the streets are always right. Dig Dogs, Daboll doesn't have the 2020s people skills for an OC position. Daboll could be great OC for Bill Belichick and UNC's offense, maybe. Yeah, he gets red-faced and angry quick. And we'll see where he does get hired. I do think he probably gets an OC job somewhere. He's got a pretty good reputation, I think, throughout the sport. But we'll see. I think that is a guy that a lot of people would probably go to, of the people pushing a little bit for maybe Grubb to be moved, would say that they would want that that would be one of the potential guys they'd be talking about. Thomas says, I doubt Ben Johnson would have been successful with the O-line Seattle has. To have Seattle has to be an elite offense when the fans knew it would be a learning season, going from simple to complicated. Well, to your point, Thomas, I totally do not believe that Ben inherited anywhere near the broken down offensive line that Grubb got through the first half of this season. And still, even to this point, as I showed with just the PFF scores coming out of this game, still 3 of your bottom 5 most worst rated players coming out of this game were offensive linemen. And it's that way by a large part throughout most of this season. So, yeah, you're right about that. It's a different scenario, it's a different situation he was taken over from, especially as far as the offensive line was concerned. Thomas says, I even throw out McVay or Shanahan to be successful, maybe a little bit better, but like I said, there's a reason why Alabama wanted Grubb 2 years in a row. Yeah. Dig the Hawks. Brandon, have you heard any news about why Drake Young cannot earn a spot as the number 4 wide receiver on the team? Reminds me of a failed David Moore 2.0, maybe. He's a 7th round pick at the end of the day. You know, that's pretty close to being an undrafted guy. I think Jake Bobo has been kind of a monster at times as a run blocker. It has gone down a little bit this year, but I think that that's also been a part of this, has been, at least when it comes to last year, especially Bobo as a blocker, and that you're, only going to have so many times you run guys out there now. Why not David Moore instead of the kid we were out there, White? That's maybe a better question. I don't know on that. He's impressed at the times he's been out there. He was a little bit of a raw guy that you were taking coming out of the college, where he was just kind of a gadget guy at college. But maybe he'll get his opportunity now. Sean, if the Seahawks were 5 of 8, if the Seahawks were 5 and 8 and out of the playoff hunt, I think it would give more credence to the anti-grub and future draft picks discussion. But the Hawks have exceeded most expectations. Yes, I believe this as well, Sean. And this is where, when I come to my conclusion on Grubb, I get the people stand where they stand on it. I'm not trying to oversell you on it. I'm just trying to better explain my situation of it. And my outlook of it is that he got a league worst offensive line unit handed to him. He had to work around that. And from working around that, he's going to have Gino Smith play out his best season of his career. He'll get a better version of this Gino Smith than he got from last year. That's improvement. He'll get a by far better version, and not just by like he got the second-year returns of JSN just because JSN's a second-year player, but because of how he purposefully has utilized JSN in the way that he's utilized him to maximize him in the way that he has utilized him. So there's another place where he's taken that guy a step forward. In DK Metcalf, he had him on pace for a career best season. I think he had him 3rd best in the league in receiving yardage in his way of purposefully going to DK Metcalf and making him a centerpiece of the offense, having him on pace for that best season of his career before DK goes down to a knee injury. So while there are definitely some things with Grubb as far as, slow adjustments to be made on the fly, like why did it take you this long to get to the gap scheme, the lack of commitment to the running game at times. There's also some of this stuff that has been big time improvements or not big time, have been improvements. That it's not just you can paint it with that broad brush of being all black, all bad, not good over his head. And that's just part of the reason why, to me, it gives you more of there's more of an indication here of you give him that next year. You try to give him a good working offensive line. You give him the skill position players if he needs it on the outside to make this scheme work and run truly, and then see where it can go from there. Lou says, let's not forget about Huff as an O-line coach. Herbicide says that's got to be the new catchphrase. BTW, bomb cyclone. Thomas said, absolutely drives me nuts about the anti-grub talk when Seattle was 8-5 and has beaten San Fran in San Fran. Did Waldron beat San Fran when Seattle was in first place this late in the season? No, I think it's where, there's criticism that I think is valid to lump on Grubb here a little bit, but that's where we come down to it's complicated, right? And stuff is in football, it's very rarely simple, and that complication can lead different people to reach different conclusions. And, those that are in the, I'm like my man Sanchez in the chat, those that are in this point aren't just, like I say, a fringe group necessarily. I think I even saw a story today somewhere out there came out of somebody produced out there today on, talking about different of their offensive coordinators. So it's, some brands brought up, a lot of folks have brought up, it's definitely the place of their mind, and maybe they're seeing that clearly on it. But I think, in our case, Thomas, the way we're looking at it with it is just that you're 8-5 and the offense is improved by and large. And that's without getting a significant better level. That's it, without a significant better level of play from the offensive line. He's inherited what Waldron had, and where Waldron got sunk by that offensive line and couldn't do anything at times. And, he's at least finding some answers within this. It's not perfect. There's still room for improvement, but he is finding some answers. And if you can finish up strong and you can finish the season off at its strongest, and he can have more and more of these answers, like the tunnel screens and the gap run stuff and more stuff that points to an identity offensively in the long term, that would make me feel very encouraged about him as we go into the offseason, rather than feeling like there's a push to go find a better answer. Arturo says, Hawk's Nest, I'm anti-tattoo as well. I'm old school like that. My family would disown me for getting a tattoo. There are some of those families that, yeah, you better not. Mine's okay. I've got a pretty open-minded family, but neither my mom nor my dad have tattoos now that I think about it. I always just went, nah. Jordan says that D-line was nuts in that game. Chris Clemens was wreaking havoc. He was. Bruce, Chris Clemens going off. You thought you were going to end up with like 17 sacks. We came out of that half, we're like, we're going to have 17 sacks this game. And then the Packers came out the whole second half and they ran the ball. It was 3 yards in a cloud of dust for the whole rest of the game after that first half. Like, they definitely adjusted. And they went, okay, we're enough of that. No more of that now. Dylan Sosa, thank you for the $5 donation, Dylan. Considering we might lose Nuosa and Jones, I can see us going after Parsons, considering Dallas paying Lamb and Dak. Also, he has a connection with AD. You're doing some of the same math, Dylan, that I was doing earlier on this one, in that you do anticipate a little bit of this, right? So let's roll it all through. And again, I'm not necessarily pushing for the trade. I'm just saying if a trade were to get done, and now I could see it happen, is by this. The Cowboys don't want to pivot to pay Micah Parsons. Because, not Parsons isn't worth it, but because of the fact that they have $20 million in cap space heading into next offseason. They are a team that doesn't look like they're just about ready to hit the injector button and take off. They look like they're caught a little bit in between. The owner might take that into account a little bit. So he'll go look around for who can give me some draft capital and give us a couple players to make us better at the same time, collectively speaking, right? So Seattle gives you a first rounder. They can also, Dylan, give you a potential guy in Derek Hall who's a really young up-and-coming player that can fit into that edge group there for you to fill in for Parsons. So you don't have to take that first-round pick and then just go draft Parsons' replacement. You can do whatever you want with that first-round pick. Maybe it's a first and a third in addition to it. Maybe it's a Derek Hall, a Kenneth Walker, and a first-round pick. Finding some kind of creative way to make it happen in that way. But I think, like you do, that there's a possibility to this. And then you add in the last part of this, which is not to be undersold here. AD's presence in the building. He's worked with Parsons. He knows his background. He knows the kind of culture you're building. Parsons is going to have a connection with him. And I heard a recent cut about Parsons talking good about Seahawks defense and McDonald. I think maybe it was just McDonald talking about him and the Ravens and what they had done. And so I think that there's some stuff to this where you can look at on the surface of this of how it could make some sense. If I'm John Schneider and looking at this defense and going, okay, we have things rounded into shape. I don't have a lot of holes. If I don't have a lot of holes defensively and I'm shoring up everything over on the offensive side of the ball as it needs to be, I've got the freedom then to kind of not just reinforce a position, but take a position where it might be solid and move it to maybe almost close to great, to close to a difference-making position. And a guy like Micah takes you that place and gives you a difference maker over there. And it could prove to be tantalizing for the Hawks if he becomes available. So I think that there's something to this as well. I don't think it's just as much a no-brainer that the Cowboys just signed Parsons. And the one other thing I'll say about this is that Jerry Jones has been tight-fisted as hell, and he stretches these negotiations out into the nth degree, and that not every player wants to do that dance. Parsons is like, I've earned my money. I want to be paid. I'm through the third year. Pay me. And instead, Jerry's like, look, we'll get it done. We'll get it done, okay? We're just going to get it done like the third week of training camp, okay? I just want to get a couple more weeks of training camp on your fourth season to look at you. Just want to see you. Just want to see what you got. Like, Mike is like, I want to be paid before I get into OTAs. I don't want to be thinking about this. So maybe he doesn't want to do that dance as well. It doesn't mean that this is a certain thing. There's a lot of reason why this could go down that way. But you never know, man. Randall McDaniel in the house. Thank you, Randall, for the $5 donation. Says, hey, bro, tell me about the Packers and how we beat them. Strengths, weaknesses. Can we get to Love rushing 4? Can we bait him into mistakes? Run game. Well, I think the Packers, you got to start with Jacobs. He's one of the more productive backs this year. He's been a very tough back to deal with in recent years. He's unique in how he's built and what he can do. And I mean, he really challenges your gap integrity as much as any back in the league with his jump cut ability to just kind of bound between the gaps. You know, A gap not here, I'll bounce over to the B gap. B gap's not cleared, let me bounce over to the C gap. And he can do it all very fluidly in just the moment where it's just dink, dink, and he's popped right over there and he's out the back door, and you've actually played it pretty well as a run play. So he is tough. And then you add on top of it with his vision and ability to find the hole, is also hard to bring down, also hard to keep him from finishing runs, where he can get this Packer team into a lot of 3rd down and 3s and 3rd down and 4s and 3rd down and 5s, 3rd down and makeables. And when you're in the 3rd and 3s and 3rd and 4s, that's where we've seen with Mike McDonald that he will not necessarily bring out as much of his creative fronts in those moments. And that's why I've said in this game, to me, when it comes into this, it starts with Randall stopping that run play before it starts with anything you're doing offensively or anything else you're doing defensively. Our beginning point starts with stopping the run. You stop the run, you get him now into those 3rd and longs. Why is that so important here? Because with Love, he is a guy that plays very well when he can fit to the script. You know, LaFleur is a really smart play caller. And so he's going to give him a play call that by and large is going to put him in a position to find that easy completion directly after the snap. But if you get Loved into more of a thinking mode, if you get him more into process mode, if you make him to have to go through multiple reads and live a little bit more in playing off script, that's where he struggles. That's where, like you say, you can bait him into mistakes and take advantage of some of where he's still trying to grow, I think, as a quarterback. He shows signs at times of being able to play off script. It's not that he just completely goes into the tank when you get him off of that. It's just that he can be so very, in my opinion, effective and deadly when you let him just go to that first read and you let the game to be very simple. And if you're letting them get into 3rd and 4s and 3rd and 5s, I think you're going to be letting him into those very quick throws that are very easy makeable completions to just kind of move the ball on you up and down the field. Then if you cannot get them into those 3rd and longs to then get to those stack fronts and those creative blitzes and to put him under a little bit of stress as far as in the pocket and having to do more thinking. So it starts defensively before we get offensively, Randall, and some of that also comes that's the biggest challenge for you. I don't think that this Packer defense is as challenging. I think that they are solid, generally speaking, across the board. Xavier McKinney has been an amazing addition for them as far as that safety that they brought in free agency, leading the league in interceptions. He's been a playmaker back there for them. We'll see where their corner situation is at. I think that they're dealing with some injuries there right now in the corner with the corner room. You got Javon Bullard, your nickel back, is questionable. Evan Williams, your strong safety, the rookie out of Oregon, is questionable. You've got Isaiah McDuffie, your slot linebacker, questionable. Edgerrin Cooper is questionable. So their defense is a little bit nicked up right now. I don't think any of these guys are going to be out when it gets to game time, but maybe you can take advantage of some of that stuff that's in there. They just haven't had, I think, when it comes down to the defense, Randall, the main thing is that they just haven't as much of the development. Let's go over here and look. Let me show you. They haven't had as much of the development from the highly drafted guys they've taken. Evan Williams has been a baller for them out of Oregon this year. I think that's been a big-time surprise for them in how he's played. And Cooper's been pretty solid. But recent years, they've taken Devontae Wyatt out of Georgia. I don't think he's really cracked as much as they thought he would crack along. Gary's been solid. Kenny Clark's been solid. But Lucas Van Ness, I believe a former first, second-round pick there, has not really fully yet developed as well on the other side of it. Kingsley Enagbare, just kind of a rotational guy that I think that they had hoped would develop into more at this point. Eric Stokes, on and off the field, former first-round pick. So I think some of this comes out of their defense right now, why you see them not be as dynamic as the offense is there is not because their lack of Randall resources that they put into the defense, but because, in fact, they just haven't had the development out of that defense from those guys that they drafted. Not enough. And so you're going to be able to, me, Randall, find points against this Packer defense. You're going to find some touchdown scores. It's whether or not you can kind of keep this Packer offense stopped up enough to allow those points to outpace the Packer offense. And stopping the run is going to have to be where it's at. So you don't let them control the clock. You don't let them keep your offense off the field. So long sustaining drives where they're eating up 8-9 minutes of a quarter. You've got to neutralize those things in this game. And we'll see if we can do that, Randall. One sec here, folks. Sorry. The Real Cheese. Thank you for the $5 donation. Highlighter Heroes, Navy Nail Biters, Royal Blue Hullabaloos. Some other ideas. I like those names, man. I like those names. Indeed, I do. The Navy Nail Biters. Let's go. Jordan Parsons is going to demand a lot of draft capital in a player. I don't see it. I think it's going to it'd be fairly costly. D.L. Brandon, who's going to be the Behind Enemy Lines person this week? Pack-a-Cast Podcast. Pack-a-Day Podcast is going to be our guy. We'll be checking in tomorrow morning really, really early, about 10 a.m. I think we're doing our deal tomorrow. So we'll be on at 10 a.m. with that. But we will be, we're able to nail them down. I couldn't get last week's. A couple of these weeks has been, no, we got last week. It was the week before. I couldn't get the Jets. The Jets guy was a little dodgy on me. He dodged me. I can't blame him for the season they're having, though, you know. Brian says, once stood outside his tattoo shop for 30 minutes with two buddies, drunk as hell, all decided, nope. Yeah, I'm the same way. I just, at the end of the day, I'm just going to scroll on my skin. Like, are you high? I think to Brandon, exactly. The permanent angle always made a tats a hard no for me. I'm thinking about a teeny tiny tattoo that says nosy little effer, but can't force myself to get it. I thought about it too, man. I turned it over. I just always came back around like, nah. Oh, they're always going to wear the action green, Ran. Always. War Chief says, Brandon, you would rock a gold tooth or a diamond grill? Haha, my man. You would rock a gold tooth or a diamond grill? I would. I'd do the diamond grill for sure. I like that a lot more. That's more than better than stupid bracelet, pinky ring, necklace. Young says, I don't understand the Belichick to UNC move. I don't see him enjoying the recruiting process at all. No, I don't either. I mean, it's the recruiting process is going to suck for Belichick. Also, the process of you've recruited him, you've agreed to the money. Now the guy's mad at you because though you're paying him the money and though you're not giving him the playing time, and this other team will be willing to pay him and give him the playing time. In the NFL, you got leverage, you got contracts. You know, you're a guy like Belichick can hold you over and say, hey, we got control of you. You aren't going anywhere. You know, can't do that out there in college. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I can only, excuse me, folks. Boy, I am struggling today. Whew, we're going to probably not go super longer here, folks. My nose and my freaking, I don't know what's going on here. I'm rough shape here. I don't get it either, man. I don't understand it. And Young, I think that the only thing that we can take away from this is that Belichick wanted to have some control at the NFL level. There was no teams that were willing to give him that control. He could read that in the tea leaves coming into this offseason, where though somebody will maybe be willing to give him a coaching job, nobody's going to give him any of that personnel control. So he's going to have to inherit whatever a general manager is going to give to him and force him to have. And maybe he just didn't want that. And so he went, okay, well, I'll just go back to college. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. I don't get it. Bo Milton is still on the Packers, Ran. Yes, he is. Addicted Brandon, valid point. Cody White and Derek Young. Just thought Drake had speed to burn. Send DK and Derek Young. JSN lock in the middle. Agreed, though. Young was a low draft pick, I guess. Yeah, I would have thought that he would have been used more, but the team definitely had an opportunity this year to go Drake Young or go Cody White. They went Cody White. And Cody, did reward them on that game that they put him out there, and made some big catches. Could be just the position's gotten so deep there. Not that Drake Young's done anything wrong. It's just that the position's gotten deep over the top of him. Teddy says, one thing you can take from Grubb is the implementation of JSN and playmaking. Waldron did nothing, and now Grubb has put JSN in a position to show his strength. That's one of the places that I agree. You got to give him that feather in the cap. Where Waldron had JSN to where he's taken them is light years ahead. And you've got to give a lot of credit to Grubb for getting that done in a tangible way. And I think especially when you look at, you can backtrack this, Teddy, to route implementation and route usage. Look at the route usage of JSN this year. Look at the route usage of a guy like DJ Moore the prior year to this year, and the simplicity of Waldron versus some of the complexity that you do get with Grubb. So there's something purposeful that he's done here to make this happen. It's not that JSN's just simply gone into year two and taken a big step forward in his own game. That certainly has probably been a part of what's happened here, but it's also been usage. Jordan says, I personally think Hall has a higher upside than Mafe, but regardless, you aren't getting, I think you said Parsons. Potentially. He might be. He's not outplayed him up until this point, Jordan. So he might have that upside, but through, the first year and a half versus the first 2.5 years for Mafe has been the better player. Better pass rusher, better run defender. Nick says, there's no way I'm trading Mafe or Hall. You don't trade good pass rushers you drafted. Micah can just not re-sign with them. Play a year on the franchise tag if he has to, and then hit free agency. Yeah, again, this is not a deal where I'd say it's an easy peasy deal, one that just lines right up and it's going to happen no matter what. It doesn't. It would take a lot of things to have to go in the right direction to have happen. I don't think, though, Nick, if you come down to having the deal on the table, the Cowboys are willing to move him. You're finding that you don't have to give a lot of draft capital up necessarily when you're able to package the player in addition, being the player, let's say, is a Derek Hall. You package that player with that draft pick. That's a little bit less of draft capital you're giving up. I don't think that the team's going to come down in that moment, Nick, to saying, we're not going to make this trade because we just really trust in where Hall's going with his upside versus being able to bring Micah Parsons in. Like, again, trade may not happen, but you're not going to reach that point of the trade of saying it's a no-go because we have an untouchable in Derek Hall. I don't think Derek Hall has given you enough as a player to make you put untouchable as a stamp over him. I'd even be hard-pressed to say that with Boye Mafe. These guys have been solid, but they're not lighting the world on fire. And, there's not a lot of reason to believe that their top end is going to go anywhere near into the top end of a guy like Parsons and what he's able to do. But they could just as easily run with them too. I can see the intelligence behind both, but I just don't see them ever having a place where we won't go to this because we won't be willing to move one of these two guys to upgrade the position as a Teddy Hawksnest, we all know that there is a massive need for O-line pickups this offseason and draft. What O-lineman do you think would be a good snag for the team? Like a Tevin Jenkins, left guard for the Chicago Bears, is a guy that'd be very interesting to look at. Fits the mobility nature of the offensive scheme. He can move in space. Former tackle convert coming out of Oklahoma State, really talented guy, still pretty young. Trey Smith, right guard with Kansas City, is a guy that they could potentially take a look at as well. Now he's a right guard, but maybe a guy that would be kind of in play in that way. I don't think there's a lot of guys center-wise that looked all that great to me. So center's a little bit of a dicey one where you're probably going to have to find more of a draftable guy out there in that one. But there's a couple guards there who could be interesting. Nick says, addicted, who knows what our cap looks like in 2 years from now. Parsons wouldn't be on the open market for at least 2 more seasons. Don't undersell the fact, Nick, too, of this player empowerment age where, yeah, I know that Jerry Jones has been willing to use the franchise tag with a guy like Dak Prescott when it comes to the quarterback position and the leverage that gave Dak Prescott in those negotiations. I don't know if it's the same for an edge player and if Jerry could get away with that as much, especially if you've got a player in-house squawking about not wanting to be there anymore. Which I don't know if he would do that or not, but if that went that way, Micah came out and said, I want to trade. Does Jerry just hold them over that barrel with a team that's got only $20 million of cap space going into next offseason with a team that is coming off a very underperforming year? They can't even say, well, we were kind of good this year. You were bad. And we're going to be rewarding players on that. And we're going to be spending these big contracts when we're not really ready for it to go for it. They might. I might be completely out of pocket on this one, but I feel like there's definitely a potential here, even if he doesn't get moved to Seattle, that he could get moved. from the Cowboys perspective. Sean Edwards, Brandon, thanks for answering my question about the Green Bay O-line. Got to go. Appreciate your Seahawks knowledge and why YouTube channel. Enjoying the Seahawks playoff hunt. Feels like a playoff game against Green Bay. Hey, this is playoff game action. It is. There's a lot on the line for this upcoming game, Sean. You're right about that, and I'm excited for it in that way too. You have so much possibility and potential to come out of this game if you can get this win at home, and the fact you got it at home just makes you feel that much more better about it than versus having to play on the road in Green Bay, 10 a.m., snow flurries, 20 degrees. You're not having to get that. So, hey, anytime, man, Sean, happy to answer anybody's questions in there anytime. And thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Addicted, my only complaint about Boye is he seems to have trouble tackling the quarterback on some wide rushes, more weight room time, maybe reaching too high. Great pressure, though. He's a good, solid player. Good, solid player. Don't think he's necessarily a game changer, but a very, very good, solid player and a good all-around player at that. Jordan says Kenny Clark and Gary seem to have reached their peak and they are not that great. Yeah. Solid, good, not great. Brian says Mason Graham, future Hawk defensive lineman. I'd love that. He ain't going to last us, though. That's a blue chipper that's going top 10. Like Nick says, he ain't going out of top there. Yeah, he ain't getting out of top 10. Nick's right about that. Dwyer says, oh man, being a Jets YouTuber streamer would be rough. I can't blame him for dropping out. I get it. It's not been a fun season, and I'm sure it's at this point he's just trying to get to the end of it. Brian says, get your Hawks Nest merch for Christmas. That's right, folks. Looking for some Christmas shopping for you and yours. We've got the Hawks Nest store up and running. Just check right below the video here on YouTube. We've got the store linked right up to the YouTube page here, so you can take advantage of that today, right now. Thanks for reminding me of that, Brian. As well, please do hit that like button if you could for me, folks. Brandon Mills, get well soon, me. Yeah, I'm struggling with something here today. I've been sleeping very well lately for whatever reason. Just cannot get the good rest. Random McDaniel, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, can you tell me the PFF grades on 5 offensive linemen last game? Yeah, sure. You've got Charles Cross here at a 69 grade against the Cardinals. And then most of your guys were down near the bottom there, Randall. So Oluwatimi at 14th on the list here, 57 grade. Sa'atoa at a 55 grade. And Abraham Lucas at a 40 grade. So they did not in particular seem to like the run blocking from the offensive linemen overall in this game, it would appear. Charles Cross, pretty highly rated where he was at with a 69 grade. That's a good grade on the day for him. But, and Laken Tomlinson did pretty good too. He was your highest graded guy in the game, Randall, with the 74.6 grade. In fact, I think that's probably on 63 snaps, his best overall graded game of the season, Laken Tomlinson. Both pass protector and a run blocker. He was solid on both accounts. But Oluwatimi, Lucas, Sa'atoa, Randall, the PFF grades did not like them too much on that side. Randall with a $2 donation now. Thank you for that as well. Says, what if Kyle Pitts could be had via trade? I think it's it's a possibility. Very, very big possibility here. Not big possibility, but it's certainly another one of those deals that's in play. I can't remember if they put his 5th-year option or not. Yeah, so he's got his final 5th-year option at $10 million, which isn't that expensive. So you could theoretically move for him, Randall. I mean, I'm thinking they're going to release Noah Fant. AJ Barner's your inline tight end. And so you have a need then at that point for an H-back tight end. Kyle Pitts could be that guy that they could look at. I don't think the trade capital would cost you a lot to go get him, but I think that it's probably a little bit of a complicated deal as well, Randall, because, he's probably going into that 5th-year option, ideally liking to get, more of a deal done. And I don't know if Seattle would really want to sign him to a deal absentmindedly without having him play there. So you could maybe make it work, but there's some kinkiness to making that happen. They're still kind of struggling to get the most the most out of him. He's still not quite ascended. Brandon, you're still not acclimated to that San Diego foliage? It's just the sleep stuff. There's just always something to have to get up in the butt crack of dawn for something or another. It's just like everybody in this world's like a morning person, and I'm not. So I got to get up at 5 a.m, and I've been driving people to airline flights here over and over, and I don't know about you guys, you got friends or family, but like nobody ever can schedule a flight that's not at 4:30 in the morning that they got to arrive, because you got to arrive 2.5 hours in the airport. So, you sleep for a few hours from my point, you get up, you go, you can't fall back asleep, right? Your whole day is just thrown off, and I've been having that going on constantly. Like, holy hell. I had a mom that pretty much goes between Hawaii like every other week. So it's like, take us out the airport again. Like, what time do you guys get? 5 a.m. now. We got to be out there. 5? Yeah, we're going to wrap this one up here pretty soon. Hawks Test, I'm not sure if this has been updated behind the Green Bay side says 10 p.m. Oh, shoot. Let's change that up. 10 p.m. See, this is how I know I'm too busy. I'm not getting this stuff set right. Yeah, 10 a.m. Thank you for reminding me that. So I think I was talking about earlier in the show, just stuff drops between the cracks because stuff's flying too quick. I need help. I need help, man. Alrighty. We're going to put a bit of a button on this, guys. I was going to do a quick show. We went over 3 hours today, so we'll get the last couple ones on in here. War Chief Diamond Grill. Let's get it, B. A Seahawk Diamond Grill. I got 2 gold on top and a bottom. Let's go. I'm down, man. I'm down. Daryl Bradshaw, Trey Smith is going to be the highest paid in the league. He will, Daryl, or he'll be around there. The other thing with that too is Daryl he is a right guard, and you might feel pretty good about what you have with Sa'atoa Lamea. Say nothing of the fact that you have Christian Haynes still there. So it's maybe more of the left guard would be the one that you would look to really go get. I don't think you'd want to go sign Trey Smith to this big monstrous deal to then move him from right guard to left guard. So maybe not a guy there, but that's as well just kind of like for the same reason of not having done a big dump into the draft prospects at this point. Still in the middle of the season, just haven't done a lot of look at free agency at this yet, as my team's at the top of the division. I'm not thinking about the offseason right now. Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. I'll just kind of go through the last couple questions. David Hatcher, I would truly love some explanation on PFF grades. I have no idea how to evaluate any non-skill position. There's a certain amount of guesswork in the planet, David, and that's why certain people don't give it as much of a measure as others do. It's essentially in a real basic baseline way. You have individual people that are former players by and large that PFF has hired to individually scout every game and to individually scout every individual player in the game. And they're having to make some guesswork on a play about what a player's assignment or role was play by play. But then based off of that guesswork, you get your plus minus grade for the play, and then they add it all up and they give you a full out grade for it. But really, as you get down to what are they doing? You have an individual person looking at every individual player and what they're doing play in and play out to determine how they played for that game. So there's definitely that guesswork. There's definitely that take it with a grain of salt, but it also is worth a certain amount of value too as well. Because as I always say with the David, none of us are individually grading these players game after game after game and looking at them in that way. And there's some positions that are better than others, and probably their accuracy of a grade too, I would say. How's Mike's mental health? Well, Merlin, he was dressing up like the Unabomber last night, so not too well. The Hawks, Brandon, great show. It is only going to get more crazy if the O-line keeps improving. Go Hawks. Amen, man. Amen. David, wondering if Jalen Durden will actually ever return a kick punt this year. David, as long as he doesn't fumble, I'll be perfectly happy with that. Brian E., the Hawks Nest, we always appreciate your willingness to stick with us over time, just about every time. That's above and beyond, and really admire you for it. Hey, it's my pleasure, Brian. I do love what I get to do. I'm under a little bit of the weather today, but we'll bounce back for the next stream tomorrow. Deanna says, "Oh, his mom needs to stop going to the airport. Sorry, son, it was a tough day." Yeah, I love you, Mom. I love you. But the 5 in the morning, the fact that airline does not exist ever, it would seem midday or afternoon in the scheduling, mother, in the scheduling. I'm running. I'm at the end of the year here. I'm running on E. Love you. Love you. When are we going to see Jack David McDonald in a big cat onesie? Hopefully soon. Hopefully very soon. All right. I'm going to go get some rest, folks. Actually, I got some more editing to work on this Ernest Jones video. I want to get this thing out this week. So we will get back to you guys tomorrow. Just as a note, we've got 3 shows lined up for you tomorrow. So I'll be coming in at 10 a.m. tomorrow with the Behind Enemy Lines with the Packers Insider. We're then going to be back at 12 o'clock with Brendan Nelson as far as the B&B show at 12 o'clock goes. And then Thursday Night Football, we've got the Rams versus the 49ers. So I think I'm going to be doing a member show on that. We might just open that one up to the full everybody at that point because it's a very important game and one we're all going to be wanting to watch and keep an eye on and see what goes on because it's going to have big impact on the playoff hunt and Seahawks run here to try to go get this division. Appreciate you guys watching today. Please, if you can on that one, go hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. I will be trying to get that Ernest Jones video out to you guys here very soon. If not today or tomorrow, we'll have that out to you by Friday, hopefully the latest on that side of it. I'm really having fun putting that one together, so I think you guys will like that. Thank you to all the new subscribers. We are here on the road to 20,000, specifically 19,500. And folks, we've now crossed 18,300, so we're 1,200 away from 19,500. A 24-hour stream. We locked that 24-hour stream. It's going to be a 24-hour stream for charity there at 19,500. So if you're not subbed up, please do get subbed up as you can help us get to that mark just a little bit faster. And I'm really looking forward to doing that stream for charity, stream for St. Jude's. We're going to get all that locked in on that. I've got some plans for that one and really hoping we can maybe get that before the end of the year if we can get there. And we're rolling along. So thank you to all the new folks who did subscribe on up. Thank you to everybody that hit the like button. And thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all the donators who dropped their support to the channel today, as you guys always do. You're amazing in that way. Randall McDaniel, Real Cheese, Dylan Sosa, Randall multiple times over. Jordan, Trey Griff, Sanchez, Phoebe Moore Seahawks, John Naylor, Megan dropping the $200 donation plus a big donation today the other night on the round table. Appreciate you for that. Phoebe Moore Seahawks, ALG Investment, Robert Charles. You guys are amazing in your support here to the channel as ever on that. And I really, really thank you for that. Well, we will be back at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning with the Behind Enemy Lines with a Packers Insider and break down this matchup a little bit more. In fact, we got a packed day for you tomorrow, so I hope you guys are ready and locked in. It's a very important week of football action. There is a lot at stake. Seahawks reinforced that grip a little bit more with this Cardinal win this last week, and now you can really reinforce it this week if we can get both a Rams loss tomorrow and a Seahawks win this Sunday at home. One more reminder and big shout out there to Hawkblog and Brian Nemhauser. I saw that he was reaching out to people online saying, hey, if you're looking at selling your ticket, contact me. So got to give him some props out there for trying to get out ahead of this and hedge this off at the forefront as far as fans selling their tickets, selling it off there to Green Bay Packer fans. None of that this week. That stadium needs to be filled up with all blue and lime green and get this rock in that house. Help that defense out in every way. Give them that little bit of energy as we know we can because you can impact the game. You're in that stadium. Don't be silent. Be as loud as you possibly can. Do everything in your possible power because this game matters this much for this season, for where this season could end up and how it could finish up. Because if you can get this division wrapped up going into that final game of the season to where it doesn't matter what happens in that Rams game, that gives you a big advantage to help you get into the offseason with not in the offseason, but in the playoffs with not only a home playoff game, but a very well-rested team in addition to that, because you got that sort of de facto bye with that Thursday night game against Chicago, then get that win. And if that game doesn't against the Rams have to matter, if it doesn't have to be for the division, you get a little bit of rest there to really set the stage then for a really true blue playoff run from your Seattle Seahawks in 2024. I know I'm dreaming big. And maybe a little bit too big. Maybe I'll be a little too greedy. But hey, I don't mind it. So I'm going to keep this. That's what this team is showing me. That's the type of team that's rounding into shape in the here and now. Let's see if they can finish it right and close this season off in the most best of ways. Why not us? That's what I just keep saying. Thank you for watching. Back soon. But until next time, please don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.